This is the voice of Ethan, and you're listening to the Love Potion podcast with T. Davey and Billy Cakes.
Welcome back to episode 12 of the Love Potion podcast, brought to you by LLT Media. I'm Davey. I am joined, of course, by Billy Cakes. Billy, how are you, sir?
I am doing pretty good. I can't believe we're at a dozen full episodes. That's pretty cool.
I wanted to check. Did we start this a year ago today? The 2nd of July? I feel like we did. I have the YouTube channel up. Let me double check. August the 1st went out. But I know that was when it went public. So it would have gone out July the 1st to the patrons.
Oh, and this is going out July 2nd. Oh, happy 1 year.
Happy 1 year. I did not realize that. I've also just rubbed sun cream into my eyes. I'm currently pouring liquid out my eye. It's fine. Don't worry about it. We'll power through. As champs that we are. There's a reason why I'm wearing sun cream. It's 30 degrees over here, Celsius. So I am roasting. I don't know how you are, Billy, over there, where you are.
Not roasting, but it is warm. But the weather in general has been kind of up and down. But you know, I can't complain that it doesn't feel like 40 degrees yet here, because it's usually pretty nasty. But we're here today to do an interview with Big Bang Studios.
It was a huge interview, and I had a lot of fun.
It was, and we'll summarize our thoughts obviously at the end of the episode, because we've got a couple of things to touch on with that, along with doing the casual catch up.
But first, we should get to the news, because there is some. And that is Steam and itch demos for Symphony of the Serpent are out, and it is 26% of the game that has been given away for free. So, hooray to all of the Steam people. And itch got it, today? Did it go out today to itch?
Yesterday, I think. It was yesterday. So, 22nd of June.
Yeah.
It's good to see Symphony of the Serpent on Steam. Obviously, it's not complete yet.
Nope. And we do not have a release date as of yet, either.
No. This episode will be public at the beginning of August, so it would have been on Steam now for a couple months. If you're listening a couple months from now, I think it was maybe a week ago it went live. So obviously wishlist it. Current development is for Grandmasters, where we at as of the beginning of July. We're looking at probably 71%. We're going to go to 71%. Yeah, so we're still missing over a quarter of the game total. So we're still anticipating a quarter 1 2027 most likely full release. But who knows what NLT is going to decide to do in terms of polish, bonus content.
I mean, we don't even know when the main stories will end yet. And I feel like whenever the main story does end, we will get NLT on to talk about that. And then he'll probably have a more clear ideas on what he's going to do bonus content-wise and how he's going to adjust the game based on feedback. We've already got feedback from Steam, which is great. We want that in the discussions. I've been checking that daily, maybe a couple of times a day. It's been good. There's criticisms, there's good things, there's discussions going on about certain aspects. So that's all good, and also you patrons are giving us feedback all the time as well, which is what we want. So NLT has all the information, and I'm sure at some point, once his brain is out of story mode, he has a little bit more time to think about what he wants to spend his resources on.
Yeah, one of the things I do want to just quickly mention about Steam and itch in general with NLT's games is translations. I think it's just a little bit important we highlight that, Davey.
Yeah.
NLT in general, the studio and the man himself, it's a small team.
Tiny.
And translating all of the text and then implementing it into the game along with, the overlays and all that kind of fun stuff that
all the cutscenes
stuff that I have no idea how that all works.
Nope.
It takes a long time. We're still technically in active translation for Treasure of Nadia. So I think we're looking at Italian, Korean, Russian, and Turkish.
Yeah, I think Brazil's mentioned as well.
That's just Treasure of Nadia. That game finished what? We're looking 2020, what? 2021, 2022 when it finished? Long time ago.
Yeah.
So who knows how long Symphony of the Serpent's going to take in terms of getting the translation done. But it is on the radar for the team. We want to get it to as many people in as many different languages as possible, but we just ask for your patience.
Yeah, we're expecting German to go out any moment for Treasure and Nadia, and then reading the chat right now, Korean, Russia, and then Portuguese/Brazilian will be looking to finish off when it comes to Treasure and Nadia before they move on to whatever is next, which
we'll see.
We shall see. As much as we don't know all of it because we're not in every meeting. Shall we transition over to the interview? It was an amazing interview. I'd like to thank everyone from Big Bang for giving us their time already. Helltaker, Shalltier, and Yara. Naika. I've listened to her say her name about 5 times in the edit. I'm still not 100%. I'm terrible with names.
Yeah, I'm not going to butcher it again.
They were wonderful. They chatted to us after the recording as well. They've chatted to us a load since. They've been very nice, very helpful, and I hope you guys enjoy the interview. And if you're from the Big Bang Studio, hello, welcome. And if you're a part of that community, enjoy this as well.
All right, everybody, welcome back to our guest segment of this episode of the Love Potion podcast. We're here with Big Bang Studios. We've got Helltaker, Shalltier, and Yara Naika here. I think I said that right. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
Naika.
How is Naika? Thank you. How's everybody doing? Welcome.
I'm good.
Doing great. Good, happy to be here.
Thank you all for being here. Which of you went to the convention and how was that?
That was me and Helltaker. It was great. Like, we went to the German Dokumi. It was got to see lots of fans. Got to see lots of got to sell lots of. We made like a bunny milk drink. That was fun for people. Yeah, I mean, Helltaker, you probably got a lot to say about it as well.
Yeah, I mean, obviously for me as a German, being on a German convention, it's always nice I can speak my mother tongue for once, because obviously at work I usually don't do it. But yeah, it's like I think this year was like different, kind of like in a special way, because obviously it's the first time that we had like 2 games with us, where both kind of like also shared obviously the underlying foundation of our sandbox. And that was, so last year we had like a lot of people like play like story mode for the Projekt Melody game. And this year it was more like really the interactive portion of the sandbox, and it was really nice to see kind of like how much effort we put in and how much enjoyment it brought to people, to see like how interactive stuff is, how much they can play around with it. It's like it's really nice to kind of like see players like interacting in real time with our games, obviously. So, and talk to them and laugh a lot, obviously. Like it's just like, yeah, it was really enjoyable for me. Yeah.
That's something we've been discussing is going to conventions, but obviously we're more American based and with a very more of a Western look, and we're trying to find conventions that match our game as well, but it's also cost and stuff like that. When it happens to be in Germany and you're already in Germany, that's pretty handy for you as well.
Yeah, I mean, Shalltier had to travel from Thailand to get there, so it's obviously like I think I want to like point out we had the same problem. Like, we were the first time at Dokumi 4 years ago, and it cost us money, and we were like, oh, this is not good. We can't do this right now because we don't have the revenue for it. So when we got invited again, like two years later, I think like 2 years after that event specifically, we decided, okay, the only way we can make this happen is if we sell basically merch at the booth. Yeah, so we can at least try to break even. And like last year we were nearly break even, and this year we did like at least like from our numbers we did break even. Yeah. And I think this is just general something that I would advise anyone that wants to go to conventions with their games is like either on board with an existing like arcade or something like this that the convention already has, yeah, and then you don't have to necessarily personally show up, but your game can, for example, participate, yeah, or if you go there, bring merch, yeah, and make it really good one, so it sells well, yeah. So we have, I think Shalltier is really good at this. Like he knows exactly, I think Shalltier, maybe you can like explain this a bit better on your end, why you know how to sell merch on conventions.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've been around the convention scene for a long time, since like I was like 17, like type of thing. So it's like I've always been around it, but I just have just got an eye for what products sell after a while. So it's just honestly at this point, it's just mostly just understanding what people want, and that's I just try to make some nice
Yeah.
nice stuff for them, really.
Well, I've learned a lot from that. I'm going to take that away and give it to our bosses and minions and teams that we work with and speak to them about that. So thank you. I've actually learned a lot. I might come and pick your brains for some more stuff in the future, if that's all right.
Yeah, for sure.
Helltaker, you've been my main point of contact setting this all up, so I'll throw to you first. Would you mind introducing yourself, a little bit of your history, and then introduce the studio itself as well?
Yeah, I'm Helltaker. I'm from Germany. I'm from one of the countries that has a little bit of an issue with like accessing adult games, actually. I kind of like just like randomly rolled into the adult dev scene through Shalltier, actually. Yeah. And since I'm a bit of a perv, I kind of like the job, so I stayed. That's kind of it. Like in terms of like work history, I've been in the movie industry before I went into game dev. Yeah. Then was kind of bored over there, hit the ceiling in a way, and was like, okay, let's do what I actually like doing most of the time, because I'm a gamer. I've been a gamer since I think like I was 14 roughly. It's a bit late, but I'm also already 38, so it's been a while now. And did like a small diploma for 3D art, and just kept kind of like evolving from there. So I really like kind of like being self-sufficient. So I just learned everything. Like nowadays you can kind of basically call me a generalist. I think I've touched pretty much every basically aspect of game development at some point. Yeah. And that's kind of like also what my role at the end of the day is here at Big Bang. Is I'm basically the glue. Yeah. So as head of production, I just like make sure that everything kind of like holds together. Yeah. And that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Shalltier, can you tell us about yourself next and what you do with the team and how you ended up at the studio?
Sure. So before all this, really, like, so I mean, I got started with as a content creator for the adult industry, making like 3D VR content, and I was sort of like the first person to do that, and I kind of pioneered that sort of like porn. I'll go into it in a bit later, but basically, I went from that to opening this game studio, and then essentially evolved into going from like that type of content to like game development. So I mean, I was making like 3D VR like porn for about 5 years prior to this, and so I've had like quite an extensive history with like understanding like porn animations in general, and like what having an eye for what is good and what performs well and things like that. And then and for me, it was kind of like the next evolution for me was to put that into games, as opposed to like just making like videos and animations and stuff like that. So it was like it's a natural progression for me.
And Yara, same again, please tell us about yourself and what you do for Big Bang Studios.
Yes. Hi, I'm Yara Naika. I am predominantly the voiceover and audio director for Big Bang Studios, but I also can't resist getting my little filthy fingers into just about everything on the creative side. So I end up just being overbearing about character design and a lot of different other things, but predominantly I am in the audio sector. I came to Big Bang because I got a 2 a.m. DM on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, saying, hey, we recognize you from these other titles. Would you be interested? And I was like, absolutely. I've been in the adult media industry for about 14 years now.
Wow, that's a long time.
Yeah, I come from originally working in actual like animated hentai, like specifically hentai OVAs with Media Blasters, who was for a while the only North American distributor of adult anime.
Oh, that's really cool. You all briefly touched on it. What made you all want to do adult gaming? I know, Shalltier, you spoke about the progression of it, but when you like discovered the genre of gaming itself, what drew you to that as well?
I mean, for myself, it's like, I mean, I originally had a very, very different job, and I was actually like a military defense research scientist for a private company, and then
Wow.
it was okay, but I just was like, I just wanted to do something that I was passionate about, because if you're passionate about it, it's fun, and
Mhm.
yeah, I think for me it was like I just, I wanted to build my own companies and things like that, and I think building companies that you have passion in, then it sort of like it helps a lot. So as I say, like after building an animation studio, like I always love gaming. Like gaming's great, and like gaming and porn together even more fun. So being able to just do that, it's just something that I just wanted to do, like after because I've always loved games, and I've been doing animation for so long. It was just like it was just made sense that like I just wanted to make a game studio.
Yara, what brought you into the adult industry?
So I will ask this honestly. Do you want the short and sweet, or do you want the long and insane?
The long and insane.
Okay, so I have been a nerd my entire life. I was born into it. Like my dad is a chemist. I had no choice but to be a nerd. So about 14 years ago, I was going to this comic shop on Long Island, and across from there was a used game store, and I made friends with the employees there. Became friends with a girl who is now very predominant in the safer work voice acting industry. We went out to Applebee's for half apps one night, and she's like, hey, so one of the studios I do voice work for is reopening their hentai branch. I would like to do, normal like work for maybe Disney one day, so not for me. However, you are the fastest draw on the dick joke I've ever heard. Would you be interested? And I remember verbatim, my response was, this is the most insane shit anyone's ever asked me. I would love to. So I auditioned in a basement with a laptop, a microphone, and a corn dog for blowjob audio. They loved it somehow. I get on the train, go to New Jersey where the studio is. Didn't think to ask them what they were driving to pick me up from the train station. So there's a windowless van with my name on a piece of paper in the window. I'm like, God damn it. Well, I'm going to see this through. I'm going to commit to the bit. So get in the windowless van, drive a few blocks. Belleville, New Jersey, for anyone who's not American or not very specific to that area, is a rundown, very sleepy kind of shadow of a town. It's a former industrial town. So a lot of like metalworking mills, things like that. A lot of the big buildings where each floor is a different like industrial company, yeah? So Media Blasters had their studio on the 3rd floor, and it was split in half with a former metalworking mill that had gone out of business. So after I get out of the windowless van, go into this building, there's chain link fence in there. It looks like the set of a Saw production. There's rusted bandsaws, there's broken light fixtures, and the whole time I'm like, oh, my kidney is not making it out of today. And I'm texting my friend, and I'm like, if I die here, I'm gonna haunt you. Get through, there's a beautiful studio, go in, moan my little heart out for 3 hours, get back in the van, go home, realize I have no sense of self-preservation or survival skills, and I was like, that's the sickest shit I've ever done. I'm doing this for the rest of my life. And 14 years later, I am still doing that for the rest of my life. Gaming was just the natural evolution. I've always been a huge gamer, but when I was offered the opportunity to transition into working in adult games, it kind of was the best of both worlds. So I got to still do my voice acting. I got to grow into more directing and casting, because I'm a big puzzle person. I like finding parts that fit and make something whole. So gaming casting, we have much bigger casts. There's a lot more room for me to get into my nefarious machinations as they are. But yeah, no, that is the origin story of Yara Naika, and I've been doing it ever since.
Wow.
Like I said, I was like, I give you the short and sweet or the long and insane. So
No, I think it's better we talk about the van. A Helltaker?
I mean, for me, it's pretty simple actually compared to everyone else. Like, I always liked entertainment. I always liked being part of entertainment. Storytelling is just like, I don't know, it's more about the self-expression part of it. Yeah, and I like jogging, so it just made sense. It's just kind of like it's a really exciting like industry to be part of. Yeah, and especially since we're making pretty much like games that I mean, like technically I would like play outside of the adult space also. Yeah. So I mean, we're trying to kind of like do storytelling the way that like larger AA and AAA titles do it. Yeah. And we add the sex part to it. I think like when we started it all, like there was like for me personally, there was a lot of frustration back in the day with Cyberpunk. Yeah, because I was like, man, it's like they have such nice characters, and then they stop it right before the good part, like every time. And I was like, let's build something like that. Yeah, or at least like try to. Yeah. But like keep going basically because like I don't know, like if you're getting invested into dates with characters whatever, I mean you kind of like want to see it through. And yeah, that's kind of like what brought me kind of like closer to the adult basically industry in general, because I was like, okay, I like porn, let's make it basically. Yeah.
Great. So aside from you three, how many people in total work with the studio in total?
I've
Helltaker,
stopped
you take the
counting,
first part of
actually.
that.
Yeah. Okay, let me see. Like because like we had some fluctuation just recently, and just like I think we should be sitting at 13 people at the moment for the full-time team. But then like over the like course of the development of the project, we've had like I mean our Discord itself, like just for the development Discord, has like over 100 people in it. Yeah, and that's all
Okay.
people that at some point touched the product, or business partners, or like yeah, did some work for us, and so on. Yeah, so yeah, it's an insanely large number if you put it all together.
Yeah, when you add in my realm, we have about 50 voice actors, so
Yeah.
yeah, we
That's a
have
lot.
a very broad cast. I'm in a very interesting position where I kind of I walk both lines of safe work and not safe for work, and there's a lot of really surprisingly large names that when you're like, hey, do you
Okay.
want to moan for me? They're like, absolutely, I do. So we have a very, very large cast because we have a very large cast of characters, but it's nice to not have to constantly double, triple, quadruple up on voice talent. So each character really has their own distinctive voice and personality.
We've had a couple of our voice actors on as well, and some of them, they've all wanted to remain anonymous, but some of them didn't want to come into the podcast because, like you said, they've got other careers and they've got other endeavors, and they want to go work for Disney or work on a children's show, or they might be currently working on a children's show and they don't want their name associated to something that's, might piss off some parents. So yeah, I can totally understand that. But I also, speaking to Just, who does your sort of role, he's had a great blast with some of the voice actors, and they've taught him a lot as well. Recruiting staff in this industry can be tricky. It sounds like you guys are getting pretty good at it. How have you found it?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't found any negativity with it really. In terms of like this is in terms of all aspects. Like it's been quite easy to hire. I don't think it's been like a hard process to hire people really, especially if it's as long as you can pay them. I think I think to answer that broadly as well. Like it's like both from like a personal life and a hiring process. It's like I think everyone has a great reaction to it. Really, I don't think I've ever had anyone be like, "Oh, why would you do that?" It's more like, "Oh, really?" Like that's always the reaction. Like it's always one of fascination by everyone. Like, and it's like even family. Like it's like I mean I didn't tell family right away what I was doing. It was like as soon as it's profitable and it's like then it's like, yeah, by the way, guys, and they're like, oh, that's awesome. So it's like it's fine all around really. But for hiring, I never even, I wouldn't say I've even thought of it as like being a challenge. Like I've always just found it been like we look for people who are already making great stuff. I think it's really important when you hire someone to already find someone who's already making like what you need, or like it has the skill set that you need, like in their what they're currently working on, either in their spare time or whatever. That I think that helps a lot. Like we've definitely hired people in the past who are very talented, but they're not necessarily like they're not mentally aligned for anime or specifically what we're doing. And it's like, so and instead of transitioning people into like our flow, I personally think it's better if they're already ready to go like on day one with whatever they have, and that just makes things a lot more successful around. But yeah, I mean, if you got some thoughts as well, Helltaker, I mean,
Yeah,
you do
absolutely.
a bit.
I have kind of like the counter experience actually, because obviously I've been like, for me the journey into adult gaming started with Big Bang, yeah, and that means I obviously came with a network of safer work artists compared to Shalltier. So when Shalltier, I think like he brought one of our first animators in the project, and this was obviously one of his guys, yeah. But when I brought like a guy in for technical art and rigging, yeah, that was a safer work guy, yeah. And you could tell just by like the exchanges that I had specifically with the people that I brought in early on, yeah, that some of them, they were kind of like uncomfortable with it, because they were like, no, I don't mind touching it, but like at the same time, it's not really what I'm into, yeah. And I had conversations like this with like past employees, where it was like at some point it was clear, okay, like this is a temporary kind of like alignment, because they like they like me, because it's like I'm part of the network and it's okay, yeah. But if I find someone to replace them, that wouldn't be that bad, and that obviously eventually happened, yeah. So that's not a bad thing necessarily, because obviously I think you have to make that experience with people, and it just tells you kind of like what you can like hire them for in the future, yeah. But in essence, like for me, it was definitely a bit more difficult, because like of how basically my network was originally built already, yeah. Nowadays it's not that hard anymore. Obviously, it's like I'm pretty well embedded now in the industry, yeah. But that took a few years to get there, for sure.
That's great. I mean, clearly there's lots of people involved, and we're happy to talk with seemingly the brain trust of the operation. During the planning of the podcast, we got a list of 8 games. Some of them are paid, some of them are free to play, some are in the testing phase. So obviously, hearing about your background, I think it's good that we shift to talking about the games now. So whoever wants to take the lead on this, can you
Yeah.
give us a little bit of a run through on all the games, and tell the listeners what they're all about?
Yeah, I'm just gonna like run through the list for a second here. So we have a bunch of small arcade games that we did basically on the side. It was just like small weekend projects in a way, where we just like said, okay. So for example, we did like a small runner game called Melody Rises, and that was I think even before we released the first alpha of the Projekt Melody game. Yeah, and that was because Mel had an anniversary. And I was like, man, okay, let's make a little surprise for her, like something cute, and just like get it out in a weekend or two. Yeah, we did that. Yeah, and yeah, that kind of like evolved into having that basically ready for the first Tokomi. So we did a loot version of it that you couldn't play on stream. Yeah, with a little tentacle scene, or like robot tentacle scene in a way. Yeah. For the Kumi specifically, so we presented it back there, and that wasn't like really like ever meant like for being a paid product or anything. This was basically just like us having a little bit fun on the side, yeah. But then at some point, Lovins picked it up, yeah, and they basically paid us for turning it into a mobile game, yeah. That was then safe for work again. Yeah, so that then got embedded into their, I think it was Lovin's remote app. Yeah, it's not on there right now anymore. I don't know exactly why they didn't tell us, but it was there for at least a year. Yeah, and that was kind of like the lifetime of that one specifically. And we have plans to eventually basically port it into the Projekt Melody full title. Yeah, as a small like mini game that you can play similar to. Have you guys like played the arcade horse game on Cyberpunk?
I've not played Cyberpunk.
Okay, there's like a small horse game inside, yeah, where you go
Okay.
to arcade. That's like arcade machines, and you can play a small horse game. And it was like that was the originator actually of like that idea. It was kind of like, okay, I found it funny to have these like small arcades in other titles very often, yeah, where you can just like go around and play some stuff. And yeah, like that was kind of like where Melody Rises came from, which is like, oh, there's like a little jumpy and whatever, and you just need a few pixel art. We have a good pixel artist on board anyway with our concept artist, yeah. So we just did it, yeah. And Melody Xmas is pretty much the same. It's a small kind of like puzzle game in pixel art style, and it was just for an event. This was like, okay, we want to do something cool for our patrons. Let's do something like let's do another like small arcade. Did the weekend pass for it, you know. and we just wrapped it up and released it for Christmas. And Melody Mania was actually a small learning project for me because obviously, like I said, I'm a journalist. Yeah, so I learned programming about 3 years ago, like during my game development journey here at Big Bang, and that was like mostly out of necessity. Yeah, and eventually became passion. Yeah. And Melody Mania is basically a passion project of mine, where I was just like, I found this like Melons game in VR with one of our artists, Chrisu, and I was so fucking fascinated by it that I was like, okay, I want to have like my own version of it, and I started building a Melon game, basically, you know. And since like I liked like mixing kind of like hobby and work, yeah, I just like Melody skinned it, like asked her, hey, can I release this on Steam? Is this okay for you? Yeah, as a separate like standalone, and yeah, then we just did that. So like when you look at the arcades, they're like they're really like small titles, but they're like the meaning behind it is often is like it's team building. It's kind of like trying to make sure that we have a coherent basically development kind of like pace, so like we can communicate very well, we can like do something really quickly, you know, like stuff like this. So, and obviously it's obviously just like it's fun, like this is basically what it's for. And then we have our larger projects. We have Projekt Melody and Not Between Worlds. We have we have Can I Have a Iced Coffee with Breast Milk? Internally, we call it Operation Breast Milk because it's a lot easier to digest. And then we have Kagura Survivors, Endless Night, and we tried our hands on V-Tumbler. Yeah. And all of these projects, like in order, basically Projekt Melody started, like all of this basically, yeah, in terms of like what game we developed first, yeah. And Kagura Survivors was one of the side projects where the publisher Kagura Games was interested in working with Big Bang because they saw like one of our small arcade projects and they were like, hey, you seem to be doing that quite well. And I was like, hey, if you have some budget, I can build a second team and we can try our hands on building a game for you. Yeah. So they did that, and we and it's just like one of those things where it's like this is like more, I mean, this is obviously out of the like this is evolved out of this interest of like learning. It's like obviously I want to kind of like continue learning, especially back then. Like you have to imagine this was like our first year on Patreon. I wanted to understand like our road to Steam very, very, like that was like a really important goal for me. As a studio, we needed to get that experience. And Kagura Survivors opened that door for us. It was really like eye-opening to kind of like talk to a publisher, learn from them, understand like how to operate on Steam and not just like release a game, but also how to maintain it. Yeah, so like how do you engage with customers on Steam? How do you know, like in general communicate and so on. And yeah, that's kind of like how Kagura Survivors came about. Yeah. And the breast milk game was more or less a survival project. It was kind of like, okay, I think you've probably all seen it like over the last like, you know, year or two, yeah, how the gaming industry has been quite difficult to survive in, especially for larger teams. Yeah. And that's not just like obviously because of the rising like cost of development, but also because that the economy. We can I don't know how often you probably heard this in the last like few like months. Like the economy is a little bit like shrinking at the moment. Yeah, and we noticed that also on Patreon, and we decided that we need an kind of like an out to make sure that we don't like continuously basically rely on a single source of income. Yeah, and it's been always like important for us to diversify. So Operation Breast Milk was basically our kind of like opportunity to create that diversity in our income streams. Yeah. And that's kind of like where that came from. And V-Tumbler was me talking with Fefe, and she just asked me like, hey, how would I do this type of game? And I was like, hey, if you're asking me, like, we could just work on it together if you want, and we just did that. That's pretty much it. So yeah, we have a ton of projects. But like I said, our biggest one is the Projekt Melody game. We've been like working on this for 5 years now. Yeah, and it's our masterpiece in a way. Like we're gonna make this perfect.
Yeah, I think as well, just to tell the audience, like so like a quick summary of that game. The idea is basically the player sort of like comes while watching a stream, and he dies and is isekai'd into a digital world, and this digital world essentially is going through an apocalypse that maybe the player can see if he can help with, essentially, because he's just thrown into it really. So I'm trying to think of like trying to avoid spoilers for it, but it's got a grand adventure, and the idea is you'll meet a harem of like husbandos and waifus along the way, mostly waifus, but with a splash of some great husbandos too. And yeah, it's a 3D adventure game, and yeah, it's a big project.
You sort of already touched on what the smaller projects do for you as a studio. They sound like a little bit like my partner will give her devs like little challenges just to keep the brains active, and also that you're also trying to kind of use it as ways to communicate with other parts of the industry. Like you were saying, you built that game for the publisher, and then you learned from them a little bit and how to interact on Steam, and then obviously the breast milk game you went and produced because the economy is not great at the moment, and that must be a tricky balance with a larger studio that's trying to produce income for the studio to survive while still trying to like control the scope and grow the studio at the same time as well, while dealing with the flux in the economy and all of those challenges. Outside of like what those projects have done for you guys, do you think having smaller projects on your Steam page has been a way to get consumers in as well into the larger projects?
I mean, if you look at what type of projects we have, like for example, Kagura Survivors obviously runs with a Safe for Work game on Steam. Yeah. So I don't think the overlap is like super massive, but since we have our own developer page on Steam, yeah, if someone is interested in what the studio is doing otherwise, and they have the visibility for other games turned on Steam, they can easily discover basically our other projects. So there's obviously a huge benefit for that. Yeah, but that would mean that like we're doing a good enough job that someone like goes like, okay, like I like the developer behind this, yeah, and they click on the developer name on Steam specifically. So you know how difficult that can be for users, like when they have a website and there's like this small text they have to click to get that extra information. Yeah. So there can definitely be some conversion. Yeah. But usually, at least in my experience, and obviously, like maybe Shalltier can like say something else there, but like in my experience, the best thing that you can do is like do direct kind of like call to actions. Like that's usually what brings like the most conversion. Yeah, because otherwise, like people will just enjoy what you do and then probably move on. Yeah, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. I mean, we certainly saw like a social jump for sure, but I think like for us, we're kind of still doing another update for our can I get a nice coffee with breast milk game, where I think once we do that, we're going to try and lead them to show our other stuff, but right now we're sort of like focusing on getting those updates and things ready, and then when the time is right, then we'll attempt to like convert those over. But we were trying to be intelligent about it with having a character from our main game, the Between Worlds game, like a side character put into this game, so that if people essentially like this character then and they're invested in like Muffin, who's the main character for that game, if they're invested in her, then hopefully they'll come and check her out in the game as in our other game as well. So we're certainly planning and thinking about how we can get people interested in our other titles with characters and stuff as well.
It's almost building a universe as well. Then it's not just building a game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what we might have planned for future titles as well. I think having, if you're invested in a character, I think you know that players can really resonate with that. If they really like characters, then they'll come back, right?
Yeah.
So I think like having good characters that you love, people will come back for it if you can achieve that.
Who wouldn't want to join the Nutverse?
Yes.
I did enjoy the playtest. It was very heavy on my PC, and I've got quite a nice PC. I was very impressed by the graphics and the scope of the project as well. Playing your games, I fell in love with Kagura Survivors. I'm going to be honest, it's this game up my sort of street. To be honest, your games seem to sit at very different points on the spectrum when it comes to gameplay focuses and adult focuses. When you start a new project, how do you decide where to balance that on some of your adult content games?
So I think with that, it's like, I think the idea of the project is important. Like that, I think you should start with an idea first, like a theme idea, like why, like as in like obviously an idea, but I mean like thinking of for example, like with another tile that we're thinking of making, it's like I thought about what's the general gameplay focus for that first, and then building a story around that afterwards. So it's like you have that initial core theme that you of an idea of a game, and then build a story around it. So I think it's coming up with that good idea, and it's like already thinking about like, is this idea going to resonate with, and like, does this have potential to be viral? Does it have potential to be a bigger game? And I like that's a huge focus on on that. So it's like for us, it's like we're thinking about how can people also play our games and get content to people that are on safer work platforms and stuff as well, and thinking about how we can achieve that with story and gameplay as well. So like in order to grow, like that's a huge focus for us as well, like thinking about all those different elements like way ahead of time, and that being a big part of the core idea when you build a new game.
With can I get an iced coffee with breast milk? We'll direct this one to Yara, and talk about voice acting, and about the audition process and things like that. So from a developer's perspective, when you're casting a role, what are you looking for in a voice actor?
So something that I really like with all of our games, because Muffin was originally cast for A Nut Between Worlds, since that is where her primary residence is, and she got her spinoff. So what I like to do with all of our characters is we'll come up with ideas for what could this character be. And Muffin is a little interesting, which I will kind of loop back around to, because she was our idea, but she was very heavily influenced by our community. But what I like to do is I will sit down with our writer, and we will sit there and kind of go over building out this entire personality. What is a character like? What does this character do? What don't they like? What are their hopes, dreams, fetishes, whatever it may be that they need to be them within our world. And then we also look at the wide spectrum of, again, we've got like 50 plus characters, so we want to find something that's a little different. So we very much sit there and think, okay, this is the character's drive, this is the character's motivation, this is age, build, things like that would influence how they sound, how they carry themselves. And I like to kind of give people just kind of insane lines with a little bit of context, just to kind of inform how would you be saying this, and letting our VAs really kind of, when they're auditioning, kind of craft their own perspective and take on how that would sound. And we find what just feels right. Generally what I do is I wade through our hundreds of auditions, and I will narrow down a short list, and we'll bring it to the team, and we'll kind of converse and say, okay, close your eyes. Can you hear Muffin here? And that is very much, there's always that one that just kind of is a sparkling aha moment. And with Muffin in particular, normally with other characters, I'll also have like their full character design and all of these things ready. Muffin was actually designed through a series of patron inputs and polls. So we had actually decided we want to have some kind of animal girl, some sort of kimono, and we put it out there. What types would you guys like to see? And it was between a bunch of different things. I think it came down to capybara, pig, bunny, and I think a sheep girl, maybe? It's been a while. And then we pulled it down, and people really liked the bunny, and then we came up with a couple of different types of bunny. Like, is she a lop? Is she a big giantess Flemish giant? Is she, a cute little, like bright-eared bunny, which is kind of where she ended up going. But right. She actually had a lot of input from the community at large, so that was also part of why it's like, she's such a fun character to put in a side game, because it shows you, like, the involvement from the community. You can actually see it come to fruition in a very unique way, and often something completely new, again, with her getting her own spin-off game. Like, they kind of get to see, hey, I helped make this character who she is today, and now I get to play with her and, milk her.
Yeah.
When you got decisions like that going through your user base, how much weight do you put on like what your player base is saying? How much do you put into like market research, and how much do you go with your own creative instincts?
It is a very healthy blend for the baseline. So what we generally do is we ask them for ideas, and people are allowed to, like, you know, it's like we encourage them to like each other's comments if that's what they want to show support for. And when we kind of came up with like rough examples originally, we looked at like what's cute and popular in the market, and then there were a couple of others where I'm like, what's off the beaten path? Because I actually ended up suggesting a capybara, which, let's be honest, for those who are furries, how many capybara personas have you seen, despite capybaras being crazy popular in meme culture? You don't really see that many. So I was like, let's throw this at the wall, and if they don't like it, like, then we don't go with it. They did end up liking it. They just liked the bunny more. So we also actually have a capybara girl in game as well now, because people did resonate with that idea. But we also structure it, you know, we keep it very conversational because we do brainstorms where it's like, hey, suggest things, talk about it. And then we take the most popular ones from there and then can do like shrink them down to a poll. And let's say hypothetically, we do this with other scenarios. If there's something we've already planned in game, even if it gets a lot of votes, we make a disclaimer in our brainstorms. Hey, if we don't take your idea, it's not that it's not good. We just may already have something cooking for that. So, you know, it sets up that we're not ignoring your multi-liked post. It's just we're already on that. So it's, and our community is very kind of, they know our tone, they know how we work. There's a very good kind of flow and symbiosis between us.
Should we pivot and talk about Projekt Melody now that we've kind of got a background on the games and kind of what goes into them with voice acting and, you know, community feedback and all that kind of stuff, I think. I don't know anything really about Projekt Melody. So if whoever wants to take the lead on this one, apparently
Yeah.
there's a very big, passionate community. And obviously in working with such a big name, like how did that come to fruition when you take on the project knowing that there's a big community? Does it impact your expectations from a development side? And has said passion and community base been more motivating or challenging or a bit of both? It's a very loaded three-part question, but
Yeah.
just give us some insights into this project for those who don't know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so let's start with like talking about Melody and herself. Like, so she was sort of like the first like 3D hentai like cam girl. And
Okay.
not only that, like when she she exploded and was like the most viewed chatterbait cam girl when she's streaming as well. Like, so she had like a huge resonation with the internet, and she got very big from that. And you know, sort of like again, it's a very it was a very unique thing to have like a 3D sort of like interactable character in that space, and like that a market hadn't really been provided for before. So it's like, you know, that exploded, and obviously from there she's also it's called a VTuber, so it's basically like an anime YouTuber as well. So she's certainly like a large celebrity that's grown from both the adult side and then also as a safer work side as well. So so that's sort of grown from there. And like how I guess how we got connected is I, as I say, by this time I've already been in the adult space for like at least it's been about almost 10 years now, but at the time it was, you know, about 5 years ago. And then I was already like, as I from my background was that I was sort of like the first like 3D VR hentai creator. So like my other brand is like Hentai VR, and
Okay.
I've been doing that ever since. You know, I've made it more than 1,000, quite literally more than 1,000 like videos and animations with what I've released so far.
Wow.
And like, so I'm very very experienced in 3D porn, and I was already someone who was very unique in creating something for the first time, and she was also someone who who's, you know, creating adult content that was very unique for the first time as well. And I think I was doing an interview for ABC Australia, and the week that she popped off, like a lot of people, I don't know why, but a lot of people were messaging me in DMs like saying, "Oh, is that you guys? Are you guys Projekt Melody?" And I was like, "Who's this person?" And then like I was on on this having this interview, and they were asking me about her, and I'm like, who is this person? I need to go find out who this is. And I think we just got talking, and I was already about to make a game studio anyway, so I was like, well, I don't know, it just seemed like, why not do it together, and make a story about her, involving her character in a larger hentai game, really. And then I think, to answer your last part about
the community and expectations, and
community and expectations. So we so I think for us, we really wanted to make sure the character felt very like herself, right? So it's like we spent a lot of time researching and making sure that she felt as authentic as possible. Obviously, that she's voicing the character, but when it comes to writing and what she's saying, we spent like a lot of time like researching like every stream that she would do, and making sure that we get her character right, and making sure that when she says things, it felt genuine. I think we achieved that, and that was really good. And I'm really glad we did, because after, when we get a lot of comments about her character, and I think we achieved that really well. And that was the most challenging thing, is making it authentic and making sure that was right. And I think we've got a really good grasp of her like that character's mind in general now. So it's not challenging for us anymore. But at the beginning, that was something we really wanted to get right, because that's really important. And let's see, anything else about that? Yeah, no, I think that's just making sure that felt genuine was just the most important like thing for us.
Yeah.
And I think we achieved that, so it was great, really.
I think circling back around on what you said about the character really sounding like her, one of the cool things from behind the scenes in the booth, a lot of the time, like, we have a script, but a lot of the time we'll take alts and we'll play with things, and we let her play and ad-lib and have fun with it. So sometimes she'll have some new quirk that she's come up with it more recently, and she'll be like, can I say this? And I never say no. That is my rule. I'm like, we will always take a wild option, and a lot of the times those are the ones that make them in, because again, it's something that kind of came off the fly from her. So the character voice is perfect, because she does have a lot of freedom and influence to be able to play with things within a scene.
Yeah, she's a very unique like character in general, because I think unlike a more traditional porn, it's like she's got more of that. I feel like more of that girlfriend experience, where it's like she's got a little bit of like goofiness, which makes her feel more authentic as like a person. And I think a lot of people resonated with her, because it wasn't just like I felt like people can connect with her a bit more, because she just had this sort of silliness about her, which just made it feel a bit more. I think her personality feels a bit more personal. Because of that as well, and I think that also makes the game's experience with her like different as well, because I feel like some of the things she says is very goofy. Like during a sex scene, she'll go on about chicken nuggets at one point, for example, and that it's just so random, but it's funny, and it's like you could feel like that happening in real life with like a partner as well, like where you just have like you don't take it too seriously, and that I think that has a charm to it. Yeah, and during the early days, we sat down a lot with her when we were planning the story itself, and like getting a real feel about, like, we asked a lot of questions, like, to try and like see where the character could go, and things like that. So like, we did a lot of research and like prep with her to make sure whilst we were designing everything that it would feel right. So a lot of prep work and everything. So yeah,
great.
Yeah, there's so much to unpack. I'm trying to like scramble it all in my brain. It feels a little bit like, because of the way that she is, and she acts like that little more like a girlfriend experience, it feels less transactional compared to like the old school, I don't know, where you used to watch on a TV and pick up a phone and the girl on the other end would be like, call me, and it's very transactional in that sense. By making her more girlfriend, and bleeding with the epidemic that's apparently in the UK at the moment, is young boys have more AI girlfriends than anything else at the moment. But it's definitely going that way. And yeah, I got that from the little experience from the playtest that I played. It's very jokey. It doesn't take itself too seriously, and that does help with that sort of character as well, because even as someone who I didn't understand any of the lore of what I was like getting myself into, I still had a laugh, but I still enjoyed my time doing that. From that as well, you've also done more stuff with the VTuber space. Was this a deliberate decision to focus on the VTuber audience, or was it just a happy organic partnership that just came along?
Happy organic.
Yeah, very
Yeah.
organic. Yeah, just naturally, like, because VTubers were not a thing when we were getting started anyway. Like I remember.
But not in the big way, yeah.
Yeah, not in a big way. I remember like when the first one started to pop up in Japan, and I was like, and they were there like a year or so before it really popped off, and I was like, this will definitely be actually like this will I was like, this will definitely be a thing. There's none in the West yet, and I actually was almost going to sort of like go into like that industry at one point where I was like, this could be a very big thing, but then I was like, no, I need to focus on what my, like, I don't want to spread myself thin with different ideas, and like games was always what I was like focusing on at that point. So I was like, no, let's just focus on this. and I'm glad I have, like, I really like games. So
Helltaker, anything to add?
Nah, it's I'm completely in agreement. But I do have to say, I mean, obviously, it's a lot easier to get into the scene if you're kind of like coming with one of the biggest like VTubers in the space, kind of like in one of your projects. Yeah. So like this is obviously like this brought a lot of interest to talking to us in the first place. Yeah. And from there, I mean, like in general, I think how you talk to VTubers like 5 or 6 years ago is very different to how you talk to them nowadays. Yeah, nowadays, like obviously, agency collapses aside, yeah, there is still like usually a lot more that you have to work through in terms of contracts. Yeah.
Yeah.
Before you can actually do an engagement, and that was very different like 5 or 6 years ago. So like the scene has like further professionalized, which is in a healthy way, yeah, which I think is actually better because it means that like the people like that both sides really like spend time thinking about like the risks and benefits, yeah, and that's really important. But like that doesn't even happen, yeah. If you first of all, if you don't have the contact, and secondly, if you don't have a conversation that actually like is meaningful. So like I said with VTumbler, for example, that wouldn't have happened if I hadn't befriended someone that was also a VTuber and they wanted to do a certain type of game, and I was like, well, I think that's interesting. I'd like to be kind of like part of it. Yeah. And like that usually you like that portion of like, okay, let's do something together. That doesn't come just like randomly. Like that's something you have to have the relationship for to have like the trust basically between each other to take a risk like this, because let's be honest, game development is fucking risky. Yeah, it's something where you put a lot of like time and effort in, and often you have to like wait for years basically to see the outcome of it. Yeah, so I mean, we're still investing into projects. We're still investing into like the Projekt Melody game, obviously. Yeah, and hopefully we're gonna like wrap up end of the next year in 2027. Yeah. But like in reality, we're looking here like at 5 years of basically personal kind of like time, like free time invested, weekends invested, whatever, and you until the game basically is in 1.0, you never know if it pays out. Yeah, and that takes a lot of like, well, to a degree also a little bit of naivety, yeah, but also a lot of trust, especially like trust in your own abilities, but also trust in the people you work with. Yeah,
I mean, you kind of just set us up for the next question with it being 5 years. Of development. Obviously, it's a significant amount of time. So in hindsight, what are some of the biggest lessons you've learned through this process? And is there anything that you would approach differently if you were starting it from today instead of 5 years ago?
that's a difficult one. It's like that.
If you don't have an answer, that's okay too, right?
No, like in essence, I don't think like when you do this like for this long amount of time, especially for like a large project, at some point you recognize that like you have to budget in the mistakes. Like that's a part of like the process. Like you have to accept that you're gonna make mistakes. Yeah, it's like if you don't do that, you're either gonna quit early or you're gonna basically just like create like a really toxic environment in which you can't work like for a long time. Yeah. So for us, like look, I'm just gonna like throw a number in the room. It's gonna like sound a little bit ridiculous, like, but if you look at like our project history, you can easily say that at some point throughout development, we invested like 10 to 20,000 into a pipeline. Yeah, and that pipeline just wasn't scalable. So we had to basically replace it. Yeah? And then you have like that amount of money basically laying there, and you go like, shit, man, it's like we spent that money. And the idea was obviously like generally good, and the pipeline was fucking like, we did a Blender pipeline in the beginning. It was really fantastic. Like it was so fucking high quality, but it wasn't scalable. You couldn't like make a large game with that pipeline. You could have maybe made like a really small one with it, but like that just wasn't the goal here. Yeah, we wanted to have something where we can like produce like content over content over content. Yeah. So the last like years we have iterated over our sandbox, for example. Our sandbox is now, it's like probably iteration 5 now, coming along right now. Yeah. And at the beginning it was a scene creator where you could like place like props and like create your own like levels and all of this kind of stuff. Yeah. And we realized it was just like too much all at once. Yeah. It wasn't focused enough. So we like completely kind of like took away like the scene creator, and we just focused on the gameplay portion of the sandbox. Yeah. And then we iterated over the sandbox for the gameplay. Yeah. And that was like, it was like one was pre-animated, one was like procedural animation. That was my own system. And then I luckily found someone that was like already working on his own sandbox in his own project from Spain. And he just fucking ripped the lid off basically and made like, I think, one of the most beautiful like sandboxes that you can nowadays play. Yeah. It's a physics sandbox with like physical bodies and whatever. It's very interactive, and we continue like to make this like even more reactive. Yeah. And obviously you have to then at that point say like, okay, you're paying basically the money, even if it's like on a surface level, it's a mistake in a way. Yeah. But you're paying it to gain that level of experience that you couldn't really get access to otherwise. Yeah. It's like obviously at least not at this pace and speed that you're kind of like doing it like in a reproduction, because like in a reproduction, one mistake is maybe 2 months of production. Yeah. And then you skip basically to the next like iteration of your system. Yeah. And that's going to cost you money. It's just a real thing. Yeah. And so in that sense, I don't think there's like any other lesson like in game development other than make mistakes and keep growing. I think that's it.
Anything to add, Shalltier? You good?
Yeah, I mean, I think like as Helltaker said, like it's one of the things that we've certainly learned is like when building systems, like how is that like that scalable system, like so like we've that the sandbox system that we've built now is extremely scalable, and like we can make animations. I feel like quicker than a lot of people. I don't think people can make it as, I don't know if it's okay. Yeah, I will just say it's like that has to be
for sure.
It's like our sandbox system is extremely impressive, and like the speed at which we can create content. Like I don't know many people, if at all, that can do what we can do with that style, and we that we build that as a necessity of like the size of the game we're doing. Like we had to evolve into creating that, and it's like you can't just know that immediately as well. Like, it just comes from like during a game development journey of just experiencing and developing, especially when you're making new technology and stuff like that. Like, so we I think a lot of our stuff is like there's not really anything like it in terms of like what we're doing. There's similar things, but like in terms of like how it's created, like with our procedural system, it's certainly it's quite unique, and like it just happened. Like it's just part of the journey of like just you just learn as you go along with it, and then adapt, and just like making sure that those systems will be able to scale them.
It sounds like you guys are trying to like push the bounds as well, which is really important in this industry. It's always trying to get better and improve. Let's pull back the curtain a little bit on the more technical stuff that you guys are using. I see you're using the Unreal Engine. Is that the engine that you settled on from the start, or did you try some different engines first? Like, how did that all come about?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we started originally in Unity when this all started at some point. Yeah. I mean, Shalltier, like, why don't you take us like from where you started in Unity to where I basically brought you, and then I can take it over from the Unreal Engine 5 side of things.
Yeah, so it's like obviously like when we started this journey, it's like it's not like it for us. It's like I came from having an animation studio and like making like adult content, and it's like whilst we decided to make this game, we're also building the game studio like from the start as well. Like, so it's not like we're already a game studio that was ready to go. Like we had to like build that as we went. So it's like we started in Unity, but then like once we brought on more experienced people like Helltaker, for example, it's like then we're calculating how can we like improve development, or like how can we make push the look of the game. It's that Unreal 5 was just Unreal was like a better choice, and that's sort of like we transitioned quite quickly from Unity to Unreal, and then stayed from there really, and then upgraded to Unreal Engine 5 when that came out, and we prepped for that from the beginning really.
I mean, like, one of the major reasons why we went into UE5 was the mix between like better animation systems, but also it was because when you produce in Unreal Engine 4, you still have to bake light, especially if you have indoor scenes. And I knew we're gonna have a lot of indoor scenes, so I was like, okay, I can spend a lot of time like trying to get the light right, or I can spend a lot of time building the right systems, like focusing on other type of content. And I was like, I just like remembered a job back then that where I had to like bake lights quite often, and it was a huge time sink. Like baking lights is just fucking insane. Yeah. And then the other thing is like batching. It's kind of like this thing where, okay, how many like objects do you have in a scene? Like how many batches basically? Yeah. Do you have to iterate over? And Nanite reduces batching to a large degree. So like the two benefits for a development team specifically, is that you don't necessarily as an artist, you don't have to worry that much anymore about like how many objects you place in a scene, because you usually like Nanite can handle most of this for you. And also obviously you don't have to bake the lights, which is just a massive like benefit to a small team specifically, because like okay, so at the studio that I worked on before, I would say when we had like to bake lights, that was easily one basically person and their PC kind of like busy for about half a day. And like that works if you have like 3 people working in a team to kind of like produce content. But if it's like with us, where we started with like 5-6 people at the beginning, that wasn't an option. Like we couldn't like say like, okay, we're just gonna have a PC occupied for like half a day and it doesn't produce anything. It just literally just like sits there and whatever. And we had a similar problem with like doing builds, for example, where like when you do a build, like can take like 2 hours or like an hour or so, at the beginning, like the first like iteration of a fresh build. You kind of like try to figure out like how you can basically save time. And like while Nanite and Lumen, especially now this hardware environment, are a little bit questionable, to be honest. They brought a lot of like development speed, and that was the main purpose behind it. So do you also want to like know a little bit about the actual pipeline, kind of like from start to finish, or is that too detailed?
No, we're interested in that. I was also going to ask Yara what sort of tools and software she's using as well when it comes to the voice stuff.
Oh, baby. So I have from the jump, I actually was very lucky. When COVID did roll around, I was already fully remote set up and had been working with remote recording far before it got set up into its current iteration. COVID actually, one of the few silver linings, I guess, as it is, really enhanced remote recording. So our team of voice actors is from all over the world. I've got Americans, Canadians, I've got people from the Philippines, I've got from Japan, I've got from all over Europe. And what we use is a software called Source Nexus, which is a lossless browser-based audio platform where I can hear their exact quality in real time, and I use a system called Pro Tools for my audio, pulling in and editing all of that. But I can actually route their audio straight from Source Nexus into Pro Tools, so it records on my end at the same quality it's recording on their home system. And it's a really cool system. It's very, very technically heavy, and the details on that, to be quite frank, are very boring. But we predominantly use Source Nexus. To date, we have never had a physical, local, in-studio together session for a single one of our voice actors. But if you listen to them in the game, you'd never know they weren't all in the same studio.
I'm hoping at some point at game's completion, you guys are going to be at a convention with a few of the voice actors and you could do an on-stage reading.
Honestly, it was really fun. Last last year in November, the Portal's voice actress and I, because I also voiced Silica, the cat girl in the game, we actually were at a convention together and we had a joint print of our characters together that we were doing autographs on. It was really fun. But I am hoping to get more of us together. We will actually, Helltaker and I will be at AX. I know you said this goes out to the broad public August 2nd, but for those who are listening on day of release July 2nd, you can come find Helltaker and myself at AX if you happen to be in LA for the 4th of July weekend. But a few of our other VAs will be wandering around there, so you might run into them. Who knows?
Yeah, I do actually look like my profile picture, so.
Yes.
And look for the tiny angry creature next to that guy, and that's probably me.
So the huge German and then the little one next to him.
Then the tiny screeching one is probably Yara. I would bet $10 on that at least.
Yeah.
Yeah, Helltaker, do you want to go into some of the production flow and the nitty gritty?
Yeah. To me, I think it's really fucking simple. We write a script, yeah, then we produce it. But like obviously the components that go into it is a little bit insane. It's do I always start? So obviously, when we write a script and there's a scene inside, then usually there's a character and a level, yeah. And at that point you separate. So okay, so I have like obviously levels. So I give it to my level designers, and then they just like block it out, yeah. And depending on what the production target is right now, they either move relatively quickly to complete the block out, to like visually kind of like complete it, what we did like early on very often. So like the player room, for example, or what other areas you kind of like see, yeah. Nowadays we switched over to basically purely block out production, which means like okay, we're currently building everything in these block out scenes, yeah. So this is like I think I'm gonna like send you a few like images for that. But like in essence, it's like gray boxing. So you have like everything in these cubes and this like gray kind of like grid pattern style like material. Yeah. And the idea behind it is that you get your playable areas like kind of like into a 3D space as fast as possible. So all of the other elements in your production can kind of like just like start kind of like going in and testing it inside. Yeah. So that's kind of like the level design part of it. Yeah. Obviously, when you do level design, you do like the classic stuff. You do like reference search. You like have like your design meetings where you go like, okay, how do we actually make this look and whatever. Yeah. But yeah, it all starts with the script. Yeah. And for the characters, it's also pretty simple. Like we model them. We spend a lot of time early on to design kind of like our style specifically, and that is a mix between obviously artistry and tech. Yeah. So. We spent like about a year before we went to Patreon to just like figure out like what's the right style for us. We had like flat shading, we had like pure PBR shading, we had like different types of like non-photorealistic rendering and so on. Yeah, and we ended up kind of like we kind of like converged like a mix between non-photorealistic rendering on the face specifically to get it kind of like flat for the anime style. Yeah, and a classic like PBR. But more in a stylized fashion, like a stylized PBR, basically shader for the rest of the body. Yeah, and that's kind of like this mix of like okay, you have the tech pipeline that is required for a specific like style of character that we designed specifically the rules for. Yeah, and since you have like the rules for that, over time you start like developing different body types, and then usually you have like a range of body types, and then you go like, okay, so I have a new character. Let's pick like this as the base, and then Chris goes, one of our 3D artists, and just modifies the base basically to kind of like get the right shape proportions. And from there, we put it into Maya for adding the skeleton and rigging. And I'm not going to go into detail what that is because everyone that knows what it is knows anyway. Yeah. And the rest, it's too complicated.
Let me jump in. We just had Ramsey Sheep on, who is our editor from in-house, and he is from a TV studio background, and he's worked on projects with Disney. He came here just by chance. He actually came here through his wife's stream, who is a VTuber, and he came to us by an absolute chance. And he would love for us to use Maya, but we do not have the team or the ability to produce that stuff that would work with our engines or work with our stuff. But yeah, he's from Maya and he loves it. So yeah, we've learned all about Maya.
Yeah, I mean, the main reason why we use Maya is because it has an external plugin for skinning, yeah, where you can layer your skin. Yeah, so basically, That is very unique. There's like really nothing out there right now, at least that I know of, that does the same. And you can also export and reapply skins, which is just like insanely good because you can kind of like start templating stuff. And that's like one of the reasons why we're using the software, because it makes us pretty fucking fast at what we're doing. So you have to remember, like, our main game has like 40, 60, like at least like 60 characters inside. It's like, and those are all 3D. They're all fully modeled. They're all fully meshed out. You have to skin them. You have to be able to animate them. So whatever pipeline you end up choosing is usually the one that like has the highest basically level of scalability. And that sadly at the end is Maya. I don't like Maya, but it's just how it is, man. It's like it is very good at what it does. I mean, like, when we're done with the tech part of this, then the character gets imported, material gets applied, and we do animation tests, and we do bending tests, and we make sure that, like, the skin is clean and all of this kind of stuff. And obviously, when I mean the skin, this means, like, when you do deform the character and you have, like, portions of the mesh kind of, like, extrude into certain, like, regions that they shouldn't extrude into and whatever, then you go back to your rigger and you go, like, okay, there's a problem on this surface and you have to change it, and you do look dev kind of like reviews where, okay, we have a character in a showcase scene, and you go like, okay, does this look the right way? Do we have to make changes on the texture here, whatever? And from there, it kind of like gets brought into our somewhat complex, but if you think about pretty simple kind of like animation pipeline. So it's complex in the sense that, like, if you engage with it the first time, it's kind of like mind-blowing because it doesn't really make that much sense. But when you like have worked with it a while, and it's actually a really, really nice portion of the pipeline because it allows you to be extremely fast on applying animations to different body parts, on like playing animations on characters in general, on reducing scope, on the range of assets that you need, and so on. And the way we do it, and that's probably also too technical for most people, but like I'm going to go through it anyway, is that we use this in this skeleton pipeline that Fortnite uses. So we have a mannequin at the top of our animation hierarchy, and most of our animations play basically on the mannequin. So they're like animated on the mannequin itself, and then we retarget animation in runtime to the character specifically. So that allows us to basically take kind of like a pool of animation that we would have to like bake on 60 characters, and instead we just move it on one single character, and we say like, okay, like for 90% of our animations that we need for this entire game, all of it is playing on the mannequin. And then we just runtime retarget basically animation through a runtime retargeter onto the specific character. And that most of the time works out. Like most of the animations, they just work because of that. There's like obviously some stuff where we have to then do individual animations on characters. Where we use a different, like, obviously we have to animate on the character specifically because, I don't know, like we need to sit down and there's a specific height that we have to meet and we don't want the character to hover and whatever. So like you're going to end up doing some custom animations where, but a lot of the work that we're doing is quite generalized actually to minimize scope. And then at the end of that pipeline, so when we have like levels and characters and obviously like voice files from Yara, and all of that kind of like stuff together, like a script and whatever, then at the end of it, we have kind of like our OCD pipeline. That is, I forgot what the name is for it. It's a graph system in a way. So you have to imagine kind of like just imagine like an empty kind of like slot for a second, and you go like, okay, so I'm just going to place a node, which is just like an object. You place it like in the space, and this node has a specific function, and you just like graph out the entire storyline, and like the nodes, they have different functions, like, okay, play audio, play an animation on this specific character, tell the AI for this character to move basically, okay, through the space, or just port the character to this specific location. So like there's a lot of stuff like that where it's basically just us kind of like figuring out how we can storytell this piece now, and how we can minimize like the amount of like individual work we have to put in. So I think like one of the coolest things about this part of the pipeline is like our audio system in that sense, because we have the audio file, and in the audio file we already have something called an intent modifier, which allows us to read out what emotion or what expression the character should be kind of like showing while reading the file. So like when we play a specific audio, then we have like a lip sync system, which we call like syncs basically lips to the specific audio. Yeah. And then on top of it, we have this expression layer where we go like, okay, so now do this type of expression while you're talking. Yeah. And obviously for the designers, we have override systems if we want to, but like obviously like from our perspective, we want to kind of like do this transfer where from the script where you already have the expression like notified for the recording session itself. Yeah. We do like a one-to-one transfer. We go like, okay, so the writers and like Yara, they know already what the expression is. So why would the designer have to do that now? Yeah. So we're just going like, okay, then let's just like put it into the file name and end basically the communication like chain there. And then the designer can fix issues if there are any issues occur, yeah, in runtime, yeah. But otherwise, the designer can just forget about it, yeah. So that means like we have a maximum kind of like reduction of scope of like complexity here, where we don't have to do any manual work anymore at a certain point for the expressions, for example. Yeah. So like, and that's like, yeah, a lot like that. So I could go on for another like hour about this, by the way. This is this is just the start. Yeah.
Yeah, you're seemingly just scratching the surface of
Yeah.
process that goes into this type of development,
Yeah.
right? And I'm going to touch on two parts that we've got here. I mean, gamers have come accustomed to seeing like AAA titles like every year to year and a half from, you see like sports games or Call of Duty or whatever. And the expectations of that evidently don't work with smaller studios, the adult gaming industry in general, which, gets people saying, this is abandoned. Why is it taking so long? Or people coming in and complaining on the Discord, and maybe you think to yourself like, God, like people don't understand how much time and effort goes into doing this stuff. Like it takes a lot, evidently. I mean, my head's swimming just from what you've been describing, right? Like
Yeah.
how, like, why do you think people have these perspectives in the sense that like in the sense that they kind of demand it in a more snappy fashion, right? It's kind of probably annoying as a developer when you have to kind of field these types of complaints, or maybe you feel a little bit more pressure because of that. I guess, what are your thoughts on those types of perspectives? I mean, evidently so much goes into it. So I mean, it's not like you guys are slacking off and quote unquote milking your supporters, which is a very rampant perspective as well.
I think, yeah, I definitely got a lot to say about that. I mean, just to briefly touch on the example of Call of Duty, for example, it's like, I mean, they themselves don't really. While a Call of Duty game comes out every year, they don't make a game every year. It's like they have at least 3 separate studios with each of those have like hundreds of people that make a game over 3 years, and they cycle it. So it's like they take 3 years to make a game, not one, but it feels like a year because they have multiple studios, and that's just like
Right.
like no one actually makes a game. Like they don't really make a game in a year. So, but that's how they achieve it. But I think communication with your audience it will mitigate that a lot. Like I think one thing that we've noticed is like we'll get like, as long like the people who read our newsletters and are in our ecosystem are really passionate, and we don't really get complaints at all because we're very good at communicating with the audience about like what's going on, and that I think as long as you're good at communicating, then they tend to like be pretty okay. And it's like people who are kind of like outside of sphere, like we might notice that like, oh, what's going on, and it's like it's like they're just not in the loop of like listening to what's going on. That I guess that'll happen with games. I mean, I apart from like why or like how, it's just like, I guess it's just if you're not informed, then you don't really know. And I guess as developers, it's our job to try and inform as much as possible so that they just stay in touch with what we're doing. And I think the better job you do with that, the less like tension you're going to have.
I can't say I disagree with that.
Yeah. I had some points to give there too. So there's like a few things. Like there's one element is like the attention economy itself, and like who benefits basically from what type of behavior. Yeah. And when you look at Steam, I personally spend a lot of time in community hubs, not just like as a developer, but also as a player. And I notice in general that like usually the spaces that are not maintained by the developers are like the more aggressive ones. Yeah. So I spend a lot of time, for example, in the Arc Raiders community hub, yeah, and it's really difficult like to have a serious conversation there because like you're just getting kind of like clapped on like the entire fucking time by people that just want to kind of like be toxic, yeah. But then you look at like our own community hubs, and I do maintain all of them personally, and it's like you don't like even like people that come in with like a certain like negativity or whatever, yeah. If you search the dialogue as a developer and you give them a chance to be heard, yeah, and you try to like approach them with a purely factual kind of like mindset where it's kind of like, okay, so I understand what your request is, or I understand what your problem is. And this is basically how it like shapes like out in context with like the development of the game. Yeah. So if someone has a bug, for example, obviously the best thing you can do is just like try to figure out how to reproduce the issue and then report back to them. So like, okay, I wasn't able to reproduce the issue. Yeah. Or you can you maybe help me reproduce it? Yeah. Or obviously, I was able to reproduce the issue, and we're going to fix it. Yeah, so like that's like it's very very important interaction. Like if you don't do that as a dev, okay, just get. But that's what you have to expect from a paying customer is that they're going to get fucking angry about it. Yeah, and I think like customer service was like a really strong suit on our end already from the beginning. Yeah, and it's not. It's also partially you're doing this obviously to protect yourself. Yeah, because you want to have a positive like kind of like experience with your audience. Yeah, but it's also just a respectful thing to do, in my opinion. Like I think like larger studios make a huge mistake, in my opinion, that they're like undervaluing the customer feedback as heavily as they do. But obviously they have different problems to solve. Yeah, in that sense, they have different scope issues. Like when I look at our community hub, we have like I don't know 50 people commenting. And when you look at Arc Raiders like community hub, it's like 5,000. Yeah, so it's kind of like it's just a different like scope here. And I understand why maybe the priorities are different, but like for like smaller studios like ours, it's absolutely in like it's the most important thing to do ever, yeah, to make sure that you have good customer relations and like figure out like what irks them on, what itch they have, yeah, what kinks they want to like see and whatever, yeah, and that you have a serious conversation with them, yeah. So yeah, and then the other portion was, let me see, there was something else. I lost my train of thought.
I mean, I think you covered most of it. It's just kind of about the expectations people have with
Misconceptions.
things that take a little bit, more development time, smaller studios. I mean, you both touched on it really, really well. I agree. Communication's the most important. If people go radio silent, no one knows what's going on.
Yeah.
You're not helping yourself.
Yeah, I remember now. Like the other portion is like when you like obviously you're interviewing a Patreon like creator right now, yeah. And this is something that was a slow realization for me, yeah. That at the end of the day, when you like look at how budgets apply, yeah, and how you kind of like produce content, yeah, it is very different when you are part of like or when you produce through a Patreon because you grow slower, yeah, and the only means of growing is the attention economy. Like you have to be part of X, you have to be part, like if you can on YouTube, on Insta, on Reddit, like everything. You have to take part in that process because Patreon at the beginning didn't have any discovery tools, yeah. And even nowadays, the only way to grow exclusively on Patreon is through collabs, yeah. And like Patreon recognized that, like Patreon recognized like creators are doing that. They've been doing this like for years now, yeah. And they added like a collab tool just this year, yeah. Like they're like years behind of their own community in that sense. Like they're like, okay, for years you have been doing collabs. Now we're giving you a tool for it. Okay, it's fantastic. They're doing it, yeah. But like literally, it was the only way to grow basically exclusively on Patreon because there's no discovery tools, yeah. And what that kind of like means is that instead of like spending budget exclusively on producing content the way that you would traditionally do it when you have like a investor and you kind of like pre-produce and you block out and then you wrap it up, basically you end up having to figure out like how can I gain visibility, yeah, with every release that I'm doing. So you do like way more polished products early on, and you invest a lot of time to make them look good, yeah. And because you're so bound to the attention economy, because obviously nobody's coming your way if you're showing a gray box blockout. Like it's just not the way that it works. Yeah. So you have to produce basically good playable content from minute one when you go on Patreon. Yeah. And that creates like obviously different type of like development cycles, because now you're more worried, or like you're more invested in kind of like figuring out like the short-term kind of like thing, to be able to keep growing, so you can kind of like keep growing the business overall, so you can hire more people and whatever. And that cycle just slows things down a little bit. So for us, like obviously we're now in a relatively lucky position right now where we can take more risks. We can basically, like this year we're doing this more traditional development cycle, but for at least like 3 years of development, like we had to kind of like compete like these different concepts of like, okay, we have to keep growing so we can make the game that we want to make, so we can get the budget basically that we need for that. But at the same time, we have to gain the attention of people all over the world to actually go and then submit basically us support on the Patreon. So it's a very difficult kind of like play that you don't usually see in traditional development.
I just want to go back to Arc Raiders. I played that game an absolute ton when it first came out, and I just found the community to be the most unhelpful thing in the world. And it's like mad. And then everyone was like, "Why don't you just make a PvE mode?" And I was like, "Okay, fine." And then they made it, and now people just complain about it. I'm like, you can't win with that community. I'm also from the Destiny. I played Destiny for like 10 years of my life, and that's now dying a death by the sounds of it, because Sony decided that it's not big enough, and that's just weird.
No.
Yeah, I know. They're now telling streamers they're not allowed to talk about Destiny 3 if they're playing Marathon, which is just wicked and wild. That's one way to appease your audience and do that. You touched on Patreon, so we'll stick with Patreon, and we'll bring in Steam a little bit as well. A Nut Between Worlds and Iced Coffee operates in a little bit of a space that has attracted additional scrutiny recently. We've had constant news coming out of MasterCard and PayPal and governments and whatever it was. What's your experience been with Steam and Patreon, and how have they been communicating with you?
I think, to be honest, like I've been around for, as I say, almost 10 years now in the industry, and I was fortunate enough where before I got into making 3D VR content, I started with adult like tube websites, like video websites, and in order to get like payment processing for that, like basically Visa and MasterCard give you a list of like, even though those things might be legal, they're like, these are the things where if you have any of this content on your site, we'll block you, we'll ban you. And that's and like, because I had that list like ahead of time, and it's like I already knew, like, okay, this is the no-go area, and that list hasn't really changed. This is that basically what happens is Visa and MasterCard will literally crack the whip on Patreon or Steam and be like, we don't like you making this content, even though it's legal. It's just like we just, so do something about it. And sometimes they'll manage to like push them back, but it's like, like really at the end of the day, it's Visa and MasterCard who are the bad guys. So I'm just going to say it as it is. Like they're they're the cause of like what isn't allowed on these platforms. And I think because I've always known what that list is, it's like I've always built my games with that in mind. And so it's like I feel like even if like the absolute worst happened, like I feel like there's always a market for it. So it's just you just have to think and adapt about that. And I think there's games out there which like really well done sexually. Like, I just have to mention like a game like Love in Deep Space, for example. It's like it's a complete safe word game, but the sexual tension in that game is, I think, better than, I'm going to say, most, if not all, like porn games. Like they're so good at like making sexual tension and like finding out what that line is of like censorship. And it's like, even if like somehow, I don't think it will happen, but like all games suddenly adult games got banned one day, you would still have these incredible games like that, which would then fill the void. So it's like I don't see it going away even in the worst case scenario. But like I think people would just move to different platforms and things anyway. But I think if you just do your research like ahead of time, then you'll most likely be safe. So it's like, it's mostly just like finding out what those sort of things are, and just like I would say, just to anyone, like find out what that list is, and like it's available online, and then you can or like, just to make it a bit easier, I would say like go to patrons like Steam or patrons like TOS, and then like just research what is and isn't allowed, and then just like plan to make games within those boundaries ahead of time. Where I've unfortunately known developers where they haven't, like, while that content is completely legal, like it's like they haven't done what might be okay on one platform. Isn't okay on Steam, and like, you know, like, so that they've hit those boundaries when it's come to it and stuff like that. So it's like, I would always say, like, because Steam's the biggest platform, like, research that one first and make sure that once you finish your game, you can get on Steam. Otherwise, you know, you can have a bad time.
Yeah, we spoke to Henley and he echoed something very similar, a lot less delicately. He said it rather more bluntly, that if you want to produce a game outside of the rules of Steam and Patreon, either go to DLSI or accept the bans, which I think you've put a little bit more nicely than that. Is there any concerns about future ruling affecting any of your current projects? Like, is there anything in the wind or anything? Or, you know, we've seen new things in the news where apparently MasterCard and PayPal have been told off for what they've done. Like, do we think maybe rules are going to be relaxed at some point?
See, like, I think these, I don't know, like, I see, like, the PayPal thing is like that recently happened, like, where like there's a little bit of a further crackdown on it. It's kind of been around for 10 years already. It's just like, I guess it just hit more of the news. Like, that's kind of always been a thing when, like, people find ways to circumvent that. But I would say it's nothing new, and I don't think things are going to change really. Like, I think people have scares, and then, like, you know, like, I like, you know, it's like you look at, like, was it, I can't remember, was it OnlyFans or Fansly that were like, we're going to ban porn?
OnlyFans, yeah.
I can't remember which one it was.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
And then they're like, you know, they have that was their main revenue stream, so like that was obviously stupid. Like, so they, you know, they backtracked on that. I don't know. I think Steam is a great platform, and like, they're very good at trying to, like, understand what gamers want, and I think they're very, like, fair and, like, pro gamer and studio focused. So I kind of, I think Gabe will, like, well, in Gabe we trust. Like, I think, I don't think he'll do. I don't think he would take it lying down. So I think I trust Steam. Like, I don't think we'll get, you know, it'll get banned anytime soon. So yeah.
I do find it interesting that GOG and Steam seem to be going at each other a little bit with little comments. I just find that funny.
I haven't really seen anything about that. Like, to be honest, like, I've been maybe developing too much and just been in my own space, really.
GOG is kind of weird, honestly, isn't it? Like they.
GOG is very interesting.
Yeah, but they're making all of those statements, and then you're like trying to bring your game on the platform, and they don't respond to you. And I'm just like, yeah, okay, guys, like, you can, like, make all of the, like, salty comments you can make to Steam, but, like, on Steam, I can go and put a project on, like, I pay $100, yeah, and I release my game. Okay, it's like on GOG, I have to, like, submit my game to them and then hope, for fuck's sake, that they respond to us. Yeah, it's like we have, like, submitted, like, our Iced Coffee twice now to GOG, and we have heard nothing from them. Yeah. And it's just like one of those things where I'm just like, okay, yeah, it's like, I think this is more like marketing, to be honest, like, where they're just, like, trying to kind of, like, use the sassiness to kind of, like, build, like, an audience for themselves, yeah, than seriousness, because, like, you know, like, if you actually serious about it, then you get into contact with devs, yeah, and you don't, like, make it like this kind of, like, exclusive waitlist where you don't communicate whatsoever. Yeah. It's pretty frustrating, honestly. Like, this is one of those things with GOG that I just don't like about them.
I'm glad I brought it up.
If you have any ideas on how these platforms can allow you or other developers to explore healthy sexual themes while still maintaining clear guidelines. I mean, you guys have already touched on communication. Is there anything?
I want to jump in on this one, please. I want to challenge. What does healthy sexual expression mean to you?
Are you talking to us?
Yes, you specifically used the term healthy sexual expression. What is healthy to you?
Consensual.
That's a very good question. Yeah, consent's important.
Consent is for. I think age laws are important. I don't really mind too much about, like, the furry stuff. Obviously, we spoke to you and we spoke to Henley, and both of you guys have got furry games. Like, that's not my flavor. But, you know, I'm very much in the mindset of Annie from Sex Positive Gaming, of, like, you know, it's got to be accessible for people, because the more you try to bury stuff as well, when it comes to, like, these more safe themes, you're then forcing people down rabbit holes where they'll probably find darker content than you actually want them to find anyway. So I don't know if that answered your question very well. That's my answer.
To a degree, yes, but I also want to posit, do we think that only, high air quotes, healthy, socially acceptable, morally acceptable fiction is the only solution? Is that the only stories that we're allowed to tell? I will, big disclaimer here, everything that Big Bang Studio does is super, it's super consensual, there's informed consent, it's enthusiastic and explicit consent, but is that the only fiction that should be allowed? I don't know that that's the answer for me.
That's a fair question. I mean, as a guy who's a massive fan of the Dexter TV show and has Dexter Morgan tattooed on his arm, and going around and murdering people is not particularly social acceptable.
And it's
you raise a good point.
I think we need to understand, why are we not allowed to explore things in fiction? I think there is... So again, I've been in this industry for a long time, and I've worked on some dubious projects. I've worked on old school hentai from the 90s and 2000s. If you know, you know.
Yeah.
And I believe that there are stories worth telling where not everything is so sanitized and healthy and positive. And my fear is, if we set this guideline that, okay, only X, Y, and Z are acceptable, we are setting up, to a degree, we are putting a rope around ourselves, and it becomes a slippery slope of, okay, well, this could be construed this way, and at every little micro chip away, that rope gets tighter until it becomes a noose. I think there should be clear guidelines. Obviously, things that are super damaging have no space, like age-related stuff has no place. But I will say, I think there is such a hard moralistic standard against fiction must be held to the same moralistic standards of society at all times, that because we are seeing socially this slide towards Puritanism, that every time that we set this guideline of, oh, only high air quotes healthy is acceptable, healthy's definition gets narrower with every chip away, every piece of legislature, every decree by our great credit overlords, and sooner or later that noose is going to be so tight there's nowhere left for us to go.
That's a fair point.
So I actually push back. I think there is a space for deeper, more, to make it simple, problematic fiction within fiction. I think there are stories to tell that aren't, these two fell in love and they are saying yes and everything at every point. These characters are always honestly morally good, because that also, we are in sex work. We are the canary in the coal mine, because anything, if they get to make all these chip-aways at us and restrictions on us, it will then go to violence. It will then go to looking at bad themes. Again, I say that in high air quotes, bad themes in fiction, in movies, because after they come for sex, they come for violence.
I mean, we constantly, every now and then, we see on the news that some country is trying to ban some GTA. I'm sure GTA 6 is going to get banned in some country, and it's going to be a big news cycle.
Exactly.
You know, and music takes slashes all the time.
I mean, I think if anything, maybe it's around clearly establishing what's not acceptable, and then as long as you don't cross that line, then you can have the creative expression to explore in fiction the gray area, because obviously, you know, healthy to one person may look different to another, which is totally fair. I don't necessarily agree personally in like over censorship and regulatory things. I think creative freedom is good to an extent. However, you know, at what point does it become like, where's the line, I guess, essentially? Because, you know, the lines can be blurred for sure, but there should be a certain line at a certain point in time. So, I mean, I get Yara, the challenge on what is healthy, and I agree that healthy can look different to other folks, and not necessarily everything is quote unquote healthy. Obviously, like morals and what is right and what is wrong in the creative world, particularly in adult games, is a huge discussion. Because, you know, Patreon has guidelines, Steam has guidelines. It's challenging.
I also understand from Gabe's point of view, if you're going to bring up Gabe again, that he probably doesn't want to be pushing those boundaries. So seems probably not the platform for that. It should be another platform that can find a different payment supplier. Visa and MasterCard are not necessarily great friends with the gambling industry, but that industry does a lot of money and uses different payment processes. I know Stripe at the moment had a falling out over Kickstarter, I think, so Stripe might not be the answer, but there's other avenues out there. I understand from like the big corporate companies that Steam doesn't want to be splashed all over the headlines because they've allowed a game to go out which is deemed too far by the general public.
Like, the adult content industry is very resilient. We're very akin to a hydra. You cut off one head, two more grow back in its place. There are solutions, and I think that more devs, I would also like to see, look at the patch system. It works to great effect on a lot of the 2000s to 2010s visual novels that have questionable non-guideline content, because if you look at anything that Just USA publishes on Steam, they also have their R18 patch on their website where you can rework those things in without violating Steam's guidelines as a developer. I think there are solutions. Sorry, I know I went on a tangent about that healthy thing. That is just
No, it's okay.
It's a buzzword that makes me apprehensive, that I think needs to be looked at more within our space, because there are games that have like these. How long has damsel in distress or tortured heroine been a core theme in adult gaming?
Yeah,
I'll get off my soapbox about that. I do think there are solutions. I think Steam is a great option, but I do think if there's one thing I could beg of other adult devs, like, we've got to figure out a place for us someday and build that, because we will never be fully accepted in any of these major spaces with full creative freedom.
well, there was this one place that popped up on Discord for a while and tried to host all adult games in a very Steam-like manner, and then they seemed to disappear, and they were in Germany as well at some point. So maybe someone with the idea and the money and the funding and can do that and find a nice, healthy place for all the adult devs to go. Speaking of Germany, Helltaker, you wanted to speak on the government side and what you're dealing with over there. How's that been for you as a developer?
Well, I mean, for me personally, I don't notice anything, obviously, because I can do what I want. Yeah, it's like it's not like Germany is restricting the production of porn. Yeah. In that sense, I think what I wanted to bring to the table today, specifically about Germany, was more about this viewpoint that a lot of people have, where they go like, "Oh, Germany is basically impossible to handle," yeah, and that's just not true. Like, most people, they kind of like stop at this like thing where it's like, okay, the game isn't visible in Germany, yeah, and then that's it, yeah. And obviously, when you're in Germany and you're like more interested in like kind of like bringing games to your peers, yeah, you're going to like usually one or two steps closer, and like there's a lot of like really easy solutions to actually be able to publish in Germany. Yeah, one of them is like to go to pages that are currently unrestricted. Yeah, so one of them is itch.io, for example. On an itch, you can simply sell your game, and then you sell a Steam key basically alongside of it. Yeah, so in our case, for example, when you buy iced coffee, yeah, with breast milk on itch.io, you get a Steam key for free. Yeah, so you own it basically on both places, and that's our distribution platform number one, basically, to Germany, to just like say, okay, if you're German, you can access this perfectly fine right now, so just use that. Yeah, and that's kind of like the easy one. Then we have like other platforms that we have tested out, like Readers, for example. It's a platform that like uses crypto payments, which is definitely not very successful right now. Like like most people, like they hear crypto and they run, yeah, and that's okay, yeah. But it's kind of like something to fall back on, yeah. So I wanted to kind of like get in early, and you can basically just buy the game there and get a key too, yeah. And that's like one way. But there's also like more creative things. For example, if you go in a convention in Germany, yeah, and it has a dedicated 18+ section, the convention has to do the age verification. You can't just go in. Like, that's something that they have to handle, basically. And at that point, your point of sale is already age verified, yeah. So you can basically just like sell keys over there in physical form, yeah, which we did this year.
That's
so
really
it's
cool.
also something you can do. Yeah, and we sold, I think, like over 80 keys, like in a single con. Which is pretty fucking good, like, if you think about it. Like, I think that's more sales than we ever made in Germany. But yeah, I mean, obviously, like, you know, like, there's like Germans that know how to like, like they switch their country, they're in, I don't know, Switzerland, for example, with their account, yeah, and then they buy the game this way. Like that obviously exists, that there are people that can do that, yeah. But like for like your normie kind of like gamer, yeah, that's like one of the ways. There's obviously other things that I've been looking into, yeah. Especially like more towards the physical key sale stuff, yeah. So that's still like work in progress. I'm eventually when I have time, I'm gonna go into it a little bit more deeper. But like the idea was like, okay, there's certain adult shops, like that you go to buy adult toys, yeah, instead of like just like ordering online, or you get like kink stuff or whatever, yeah. And those adult shops that are also adult only, yeah, they also have to age verify you. So in that sense, like you could easily basically sell games in places like this. So you have to like obviously try to figure out how you get in the network there. I still have that part to figure out, yeah. But then you can kind of like try and see if there's a really cheap way, yeah, to kind of like make it a nice process for them to like sell keys for you, get them cut, yeah, and then you basically just like sell in shops like this, yeah. So I mean, just because everything is all digital nowadays doesn't mean that like physical stores don't exist anymore, yeah. So I think like it's really about like being creative on figuring out how to publish basically your games, yeah, and less about like going like, oh no, Steam doesn't allow it, and then just stopping there, because like that's what most people do. They go like, oh, Steam doesn't allow it, and then they stop there, and then like the next step that usually is taken is like, oh, I'm going to build my own platform, and then like Visa, Mastercard come along and go like, wait a second, it's like, hold on there. So like I just like think there's like really a lot of like creative solutions, and I think the problem now at this point is more about us devs communicating to our German players, by the way, you can do this, and you can do that, and you can do that, and all of this is going to result in you owning the game on Steam, yeah. And if people recognize this more as a solution, yeah, and if that's get more communicated, I think German players will have just as much access again as they had prior, yeah. So that's it. That's the goal.
It's great. I mean, with access and with attention and building a community, any game's going to be received with praise, criticism, skepticism. As a team, how much attention do you guys pay to that chatter, whether it's reviews, community feedback, and player expectations? Because as the adult gaming industry has become a little bit, I would say, like more prevalent and less taboo over the past little while, do you feel like the community is more critical and they have higher expectations about things?
I think players in general have like high expectations of like any product that they get like emotionally invested in or like have an interest in. So I think that's completely normal. And when you're like releasing side by side on Steam with like large titles, you have to you have to accommodate for the fact that you're gonna get compared. It's just like that's normal. I think like that's completely healthy too, because I mean obviously it pushes you too as a dev. You kind of like start thinking, okay, what could I do more? Yeah. Maybe sometimes you can't, yeah, and then you talk to your customer and you go like, well, this is the limit that I can currently go to, yeah, I'm listening, yeah, and if I ever like like if I ever have like more budget, I'm trying to kind of like bring that extra thing to basically to the game, yeah. But like I think that's pretty much like it, yeah. Internally we do limit exposure, like in our team I think just Shalltier, Yara, and me have like outside-facing interactions, yeah. And the rest of the team is usually kind of like just like in a safe haven, kind of like where they don't necessarily have to expose themselves to this like mix of kind of like input, because obviously some input can be really pushing and motivating, and some input, depending on where it comes from, can be quite the opposite. So we're obviously trying to kind of like bubble them away a little bit so they have their peace and can just like work, yeah. And we take the brunt basically of the feedback on the nose. Yeah.
To kind of piggyback off of that, I think we are very good at reading everything, good, bad, ugly, constructive. And it's very over time you kind of learn how to read whether or not it's a good faith criticism or if it's just someone wanting to be contrarian. Because there's always going to be someone who's like, this sucks, it's a scam, and like that has never touched our stuff. It's for us, we are very good at looking at the things that people say, I would like to see this. And our community is very, very well behaved when they're giving us their thoughts and feedback, because they are able, like, they give us very good constructive things. I want to be able to do this in Sandbox. I would like to see more of this. I didn't really like the way this felt. It was a little clunky, things like that. Our community is very respectful in that. Whereas if you go to certain forums where, they've pirated a version, there's like, this sucks, these guys are hacks. I'm not going to take that as a great personal slight. Admittedly, I'm a little desensitized to people being mean. I work on hentai dubs, and we know the stigmas that those had. I actually worked for the studio, not at the time of, but I worked for the studio that did the Bible Black dub. I am no stranger to people being like, what in the Kentucky fried hell is this? So I think for us, it's really being able to take the constructive comments and bring it back to our team in a way that's filtered through us to explain how it could be better without necessarily the demeaning or the derogatory or the rage baity accoutrement.
It's a tricky balance. You guys are very engaging in your Discord, and we see that. Billy and I are the two that front most of it when it comes to our Discord. Our actual team members don't really get involved. They're too busy doing their stuff and hiding away. And we have a little segment called Community Feedback or whatever it is, and we just throw stuff in there if we think anything's worth them reading. I want to end on one final question for each of you. If we were to sit down 5 years from now, what are your hopes has changed for the studio by then? What goals, milestones would make you sit back and go, yeah, we've achieved what we set out to do? And, individually, where do you want to be in 5 years?
Should I go first? I mean, I can go first on this. I mean, I want us to be like the biggest hentai studio in the world. Like, I want to make the best products. Like, I want to be generational defining. Like, for us, like, it is. I want to be the next generation of hentai content, and I want to set the standard. So for us, it's like we want to be number one. Like that is like it's not even a dream. It's like no, we're gonna do this. Like it's not. It's I don't even feel like it's hope. Like it's like for me, it's like no, we're going to do this, and that's what we're going to achieve. And it's like, and I feel very sure of ourselves. And like okay, sure, maybe we'll make failures. Failure might be normal, but it's a very strong like how like we are just going to do this and like like it's just it's never about like can you, it's like I can't, if you can't do something, it's like how can you do something, and that's how you should view things. And I feel very very strongly about like I mean in life in general, I think like everyone's going to die and you should live the best life possible, and like I want to make the best studio possible. And so I've very strong views on that.
I think for me, I want to be here. I want to still be here. I want to be doing this. If I can still be in the position that I am in 5 years from now, doing the same thing that I love, because as cliche as it is, this is my dream job. I'm very lucky and very happy to be here. If I can still be doing the same thing 5 years from now with anything that changes in the industry, but still be able to do what I love and make high quality adult content for people that really resonates, then I will call that a win. Obviously, ANBW will be out by then, and we'll have a great, wonderful, a much bigger fan base. We'll be able to explore more things, do more projects. But at the end of the day, I just want to be here doing this.
I was thinking about this a little bit, and well, I mean, one thing obviously for me would be that I can pay everyone in the team, including us, obviously, like because in reality, like everyone, like including the admin team, is basically taking cuts at this point, yeah, for the paycheck to make this happen, yeah. And I would like to be at a position where we don't have to do this anymore. Like that would be really nice, because that's just yeah, like that would be the healthy thing for us to kind of like be in. And the thing I look most forward to is wrapping up the projects we have right now, because we have obviously put a lot on our table, yeah, and I want to kind of like I want to wrap them up, like maybe put a bunch of DLCs in, yeah, and then move on to the next project. Because let's be honest, like working on a project for 5 or 6 years is taxing. Like you do it for so long, at some point your creativity is kind of like you want to like do something, and that's why we're doing side projects and whatever, yeah. And for me, like just like this idea of okay, like we wrap this up, yeah, we do the next like creative kind of like endeavor, I'm really looking forward to that, yeah. And for me, like like this like initial like spurt of like creativity when you start a new project. That's like obviously the most exciting portion usually. Yeah. And yeah, that's if I can do that for the rest of my life, like 5 years from now, 10 years from now, I'm all in.
Thank you. That's brilliant. All of you, thank you very much for being here. I greatly appreciate it. Billy, I've had a great fun. Have you had fun?
Thanks for having us.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Good, good. Yeah, no, I had a blast.
All right, we're back. That was again a fantastic interview with Big Bang Studio, Helltaker, Shalltier, and Yara. I want to thank you again for joining us in a lengthy conversation on a lot of different topics. We hope that you as listeners enjoyed that interview. Lots of things to kind of unpack with that interview, and one of the things we'll touch on towards the end is, you know, our conversation about healthy sexual themes. But I mean, I just want to highlight the fact that I had no idea about VTubers and Projekt Melody and that type of community. So I'm just appreciative of continuing to learn about all of these different spaces that people are involved in, and hearing the passionate perspectives that folks bring who are involved in them. Davey, what say you?
Yeah, we had Henley on from Kinky Fridays and we learned about the furry community, and now we've had Big Bang Studios on and we learned about the VTuber community. There's niches of this adult market that we at NLT definitely don't tap into because it's just not the way this community is built. But, you know, we are also a little bit blind to ourselves because we don't have the time to go play all these different games, and it's very nice to hear about those communities and learn about them and all the different perspectives as well. And the fact that Big Bang are going out to conventions and they're selling games in person with different codes, and how they're making that work for them by selling merch in person. And, you know, they done one in Germany, they got one in LA, or I think it was LA they said. That's really cool. Hopefully the adult gaming community is going to get even bigger. I know we've got something 8, I think it's G8, it might be G8, which is a convention out in Asia which Andy from Sex Positive Gaming goes to. That's the big one by the sounds of it, where Mango Party rocks up with like their 47 different studios and, you know, takes over most of the convention center, and that's really cool how that's taking off. So hopefully we get to go to one at some point as well. That'd be a nice holiday.
I mean, maybe one day and we can hang out in person instead of in an online capacity.
Yes.
Just talk shit about hockey the entire time.
100%. 100%. But yeah, a shout out to them guys for Big Bang. They gave up their Saturday.
Yeah.
I know they said they probably work on a Saturday anyway, because, you know, all game developers do. They give up their time whenever they can, and they're on the computer whenever they can. And they're all over the world as well. Shalltier is out in Asia, and he got up at, I think, silly time in the morning to come talk to us, or whatever it was. It was hard to organize, but they were very, very nice and amazing to do. And I want to thank them a lot. And Yara caught us a little bit on the back foot because she threw a question back at us, which we were not prepared for.
Love it, though.
I listened in back in the edit, and I even sat next to my partner and spoke about the whole conversation about healthy sexual themes. It's a great question by Yara. It's a question I'd like to pose to all of you in the community. And if you want to put it in the Discord, if you want to put it in the YouTube comments below, what your thoughts are on what healthy sexual themes. I went away and I done a little bit of research and a little bit of thought, and for context, I studied film and media at college, so I kind of tapped into a little bit of that knowledge, you know, even though it was like 15 years ago at this point because I'm getting old. But after giving some more thought, I think healthy sexual themes are very much a very difficult thing to define because everyone has different boundaries. I'm sure you would agree with that, Billy.
Absolutely.
For me personally, non-consensual content, age play, gore, torture, and animal-related stuff that is not furry are all things that I don't really have an interest in seeing.
Yeah, me neither.
And my partner said, you know, what breaks the law is probably is where it should be, right? And that's up to governments and stuff like that to decide. That being said, the whole Nara's argument of that fiction should be allowed to explore these themes, you know, I agree with it, but it's the way that you do it. If you look at subjects in mainstream film and TV that have explored these themes for decades, you've got 13 Reasons Why. That's got some pretty dark themes in it. The Green Mile, it's got a scene in it which I think gets cut for most TV replays, and there's a reason why it gets cut, and it's horrific. A Clockwork Orange is a famous one that everyone will know if they have heard of that film. They all explore abuse, violence, and non-consensual acts. However, these stories are generally not presented in a way that are, you know, you're not meant to look up to them and glorify them or aspire to be like that. They are showing the consequences of that horror and the impact that it has on people who've lived through those events, which I think it's like the really important thing to remember in them sort of like films and shows. And then for anyone who's watched it, I don't know if you watched it, Billy, if you've watched Saltburn.
No.
I do recommend watching it. I don't know if it's going to be your cup of tea, but that explores some sexual themes in some very, very different, unsettling and shocking ways. Yeah.
There's the guy in the hot tub, right?
Yeah, there's some scenes. There's some stuff.
Yeah. We don't have to get into it.
People who've watched have watched and they'll understand. If you haven't watched, it's a good film. It's just a bit twisted. But that film is not there for you to go, oh, that's a great idea. It's for you to go, oh, that's weird. How do I feel about that? Yeah, and then you discuss that, you know, if you watch it with a partner, you can then discuss sexual stuff with your partner, which is a healthy thing to do. You should always talk to your partner about sexual stuff. You know, explore each other in a safe way. It's this like clear distinction between the glorification that's important to me. Like, creative work should be allowed to tackle uncomfortable subjects, but as a creator and as a community, you need to be aware of how that work is perceived outside of the community. And I sometimes wonder a little bit that because we're in the trenches of the adult gaming community, we're not quite seeing what's being reported on the news, like how the general public see it, which is why I often talk to, you know, my friends or even my partner about my work, about this, because they're not in it. So they're going to give you a different perspective.
Yeah.
The important thing is we need to push back against the censorship from the payment processors. That's a very clear one to me. If we can do that when it comes to the safe content, I think we have a little bit more ground to stand on. We already have laws in place from governments. I know Germany's in a weird place, Australia's in a weird place, UK is trying to do weird things as well. But at that point, at least, you know, we should probably follow them rules and not worry about what a payment processor is trying to imply on top of those rules, which is the main issue. But yeah, I just want to reiterate, we need to be together against the payment processors. I brought up in the conversation that Steam are not the platform to try and fight this because they're too big. They're too much public eye. The last thing they want to do is to stick their neck out on the line, end up on Sky News or CBC News or whatever it is and get absolutely lambasted by some prime minister. It's not a good PR move. And it would, then all of the parents of kids who are playing like CSGO on Steam would tell their kids to not be on Steam. And that's a whole different thing. And then Steam doesn't have the platform for us adult creators to use. So, but yeah, I wrote this all down and I haven't actually followed it script to script because what I wrote down is that, you know, I'll let you go.
I'm following along with you, and I think what you're saying is really good. The big thing with the creative process or fiction in general is, I think, establishing a line between what is, I'm doing bunny quotes, but right versus wrong. So not to restrict people in being creative with their projects or or expressions.
Yeah.
However, I think the issue hereby lays with what are we sexualizing? And that's obviously where it becomes problematic, because some folks obviously have different attractions and fetishes and things of that nature, but that's not necessarily me condoning all of them.
Yeah.
And given the landscape of, you know, things that have been going on in the news, particularly
North
down
American.
south, I'm not going to get into the politics of it, but
Yes.
evidently there's a lot of concerns just about, you know, protecting children, right? Like,
yes,
that's obviously a hard line.
Yeah.
And other things, like you've mentioned before, should have, to a degree, a hard line. So
Yeah.
I think just finding where that is probably the most challenging aspects of all of this. Not to say that certain things are wrong to explore as a theme or a concept, because, you know,
Yeah.
humans do real messed up stuff and we're very, very complex people. I mean, I'm not to say I'm an expert in any regard, but, you know,
No.
I have a social work degree. I work with folks who have experienced very complex trauma in their lives, and I've experienced my work with them to be very challenging, and it's very different to each individual experience. So we just have to be careful and
Yeah.
respect one another. I think that's the number one thing. Like Davey, you said, you watch something controversial. If you're doing that with a loved one, whether that's a partner or a family member or a friend, you ideally have some type of conversation about it, because if we sweep things under the table and we ignore things and things aren't talked about, we're never going to figure out a way to move through them or find, you know, a good happy medium to certain things.
No.
So I guess that's just kind of my piece.
No.
Oh
Yeah.
God. I mean, just in like, I mean, I've told some of my friends that I just like do this podcast in general, right? And
Yeah.
I'm involved in this type of community, and everyone's like, "What? Really? Yeah, really?"
Yeah.
I'm like, Like, it's not. Sure, it's not quote unquote traditional, but I mean,
Yeah.
it is what it is. I like it, so there's no shame in it, because it's not like it's quote unquote gross or whatever. It's just kind of still a little bit not talked about. So
Yeah.
it's because certain topics are uncomfortable that people don't like to talk about them.
Yeah.
But we do have to be comfortable in having harder conversations with one another, instead of just hiding behind a screen or a keyboard, and just spewing like vitriol at one another. So
one of my favorite things, one of my absolute favorite things, is every now and then we'll tell someone in our lives, you know, in my partner's life, be it her friend or my friend or whatever, we'll tell them what I do. And then I always show them one of the game trailers just to get their raw reaction. And it's always hilarious.
Because they're uncomfortable?
Not that. It's because they're fascinated. It's because they're like, oh, look, boobies bounce. And, oh, you can do that with animation. Oh, and you can do that. And I always show them a YouTube trailer, by the way, not the Steam one. Whole big difference there. But it's the fascination, and I haven't like met anyone to go, oh no, that's gross, what you're doing. It's always questions of inquisitiveness and trying to learn and wanting to understand. And then I say, look, it's just the NLT community. It's this large. And then you can bring up the fact of, the adult gaming sector is probably one of the more successful ones since COVID. And they're like, oh, this is growing. And I'm like, yeah, this is growing. And people are exploring it in that way. This will never happen, but it would be very interesting to watch a game developer build a game with something like non-consensual content in it, but in a way that you as a viewer are not meant to enjoy it. Because that is what a film would do. Right. Yeah. That's a different take on it. That's not glorifying it. That's shocking you. There's horror games out there. There's is it Outlast, the horror game? I think it's Outlast. Outlast 1.
I have no idea.
Yeah, that's got some dark stuff in it. That's not an enjoyable, comfortable game to play. One, it's a horror game.
Right.
And two, it's got some dark themes in it that I've seen Twitch streamers stop playing it very quickly because of certain moments.
Well, yeah, and that's a horror game. I think what we're leaning into is if it's a adult game, and there's these types of things involved in it. Are we removing the sexual, sexualization of the act from that? So to quote the late Jerry Springer, at the end of the day, take care of yourselves and each other. That's what I'm going to say about this type of topic. We have to respect each other's different perspectives and opinions, and that doesn't necessarily need to create a us versus them rhetoric when it comes to, if people are interested in furry content, like, all the power to you. Like, I don't care. Enjoy it. If it's there, consume it. Right? There's nothing necessarily wrong with that. Just respect one another. That's the biggest thing.
And always be open to perspectives that are not attacking you from the outside community, and learn from that. That's the good thing. Yeah, great sign off. With that, we probably should do the casual catch up.
Yeah, we can gloss over, what is it, version 62% of the game. The notes I wrote weren't very robust for this one. The main thing you wanted to talk about, Davey, was the start of the update, right, where Amira gets a tank and has a go at the Lord himself. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so not the actual bit where she has a go at the Lord, but the bit before that in the desert where Ethan rocks up and Lola rocks up and they're having a conversation, and the police are there, the army are there, Jackson's there, and Amira's in a tank and she's talking to the press. That is the first bit of sprite movement, is what we call it inside, is that I did. So NLT for about a couple of weeks taught me how to do some. Gave me some demos. I sat on a call and watched him do some stuff. And then he gave me this and he said, if you could do this, you could do anything, because this is the hardest one I can give you. And I was like, thanks, throw me into the deep end. He went, well...
Trial by fire.
Exactly. And as someone who very quickly learned that you can go from being a pot wash to working in a kitchen that does 200 meals in a night, I'm going to do well if I get thrown in the deep end. So yeah, I think it was pretty good to well reviewing it and looking at it post playing it. There's a few little clip issues where people's head disappear into tanks, and it'll need cleaning up, but that's what the cleanup time is for. We're on a tight deadline, so I found that whole sequence quite funny though. I don't know how you've found it.
Yeah, I mean, Amira is clearly kind of going off the
rails
deep end with. Yeah, and I mean, it's not a bad thing because it creates conflict with her character.
Yeah.
And obviously this leads into a scene with her and Lola at the hospital. Was a love potion involved in that one?
It was. So that was how Amira recovered from her injuries, because they give her love potion. And then even after the scene with Lola, Ethan, and Amira in the hospital, Lola and Amira leave that room. 2 nurses come in, and if you speak to one of the nurses, they make a joke about, how was the love potion? So they knew exactly what was going to happen as well, which I thought was a pretty fun little thing. Sticking with Amira's family, we then have to deal with Bacco being Bacco.
Yeah, what the spying on? Who's he spying? Trying to spy on Anya at Emerald Ridge?
Yeah. He's like a massive fanboy.
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of akin to a little bit to Larry, just a little more brash in his actions. I found that going to collect skunk tails was interesting to flush out the vent. I was like, what the hell am I doing with this when I first collected it? Because I had no idea. And then I'm not complaining we did, because we got that good scene with Olivia and Anya in the sauna. It was nice.
They're your 2 favorites, aren't they?
Yeah, I would say they're pretty high up there for me with the game. I've been pushing NLT since the Sauna environment was shown that we had to have a scene there. So I'm glad we finally did it, and
Yeah.
maybe we'll have another one in there. Because it's fun. It makes things a little bit different. We had obviously a little bit of AI usage in that scene with the removal of clothing, which
Yeah.
I wasn't necessarily against. Like, I think it was okay, but again, you know, people have their reservations about AI and its use in these games. But again, we wouldn't be getting to see that type of shot if we weren't using the tool. So it's either we use it and succumb to the evil that is artificial intelligence, or we just have a black transition screen, and in the name of progressing and trying to add different things as a way to improve the game, I don't think it's that bad.
No. Ramsey last episode spoke about all of that, so we know how that's working, and it makes sense for me. Yeah, it was a good scene. I do like the sauna. I've always wanted that place to be like expanded upon as like a health club. I wanted a proper hot tub again, and I want like a swimmer pool there, and I want like other practice tennis courts that you can go play a tennis mini game at, and like all these things. If I was in charge of that area of the map, it would be the most bloated part of the map. You can tell I'm a sports fan. It's probably the same for you as well, though, Billy. You know.
Yeah, I mean, any different setting that you can have an interaction with in this game, I think, would be beneficial.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we had a pool in. We had a pool in Treasure of Nadia. We had a pool in TGO. I don't know if we have a pool in this game, so maybe that will be added, because I think those scenes are fun to have.
I was just thinking maybe we get like a tennis table or ping pong, and then you can have some fun with ping pongs. I don't know if anyone's interested in that.
Go back to that Moan Zone clip of Naomi. I think that's
Yes.
in TGO with the ping pong.
Yes, it is. Yes.
To cap it all off, we have Julia in the Emerald Ridge Lounge.
Yep.
Ethan goes in the back door. So nice content for some Julia fans that are out there. I think she's definitely ramping up her willingness to quote unquote engage with Ethan. So not a bad thing.
Every guide video I post, somebody always asks who gets scenes, and every single time I say that Julia's got a scene, people are like, "Oh, I'm definitely gonna play it." And I was like, "What do you do on the other one? Do you just not play the game?"
I mean, I think it's with the way that the cycle has worked with the 10 women, like it's become like a 3-cycle routine.
Yeah.
If you're looking at it, so we had this one, we had Olivia, Amira, Julia, and
Lola.
Anya. No, we didn't have Lola. Oh yeah, we did it. Lola, Amira,
Olivia, Anya, Julia.
Anya, and Julia. So it's a lot of characters. So I mean, like, you can kind of figure out who's going to come out in the next update, the next story update, right?
And then NLT sneaks in like an Impuser or a Agrat or a Fina and throws us all off.
Yeah. Or at this point, a Medusa. I mean, there's a lot to go through, and
Unpack.
I mean, we're already at 85 animated scenes in the theme player,
and there's a lot more than that,
which is a lot
elsewhere.
So there's tons of content. So I mean, if you're a Steam user and you're sticking with us through the listen of this episode, because I think we are going to drop it in the Steam discussion, maybe that'd be a good idea. There's tons and tons of content you're going to be able to consume. We've got a feedback document that I think should hopefully be there. If
it's
not,
in the game.
We can.
Once you get to the end of the demo, it pops up.
All feedback is good feedback.
Exactly.
We want to know how the content can improve. But I mean, if you're, again,
apart from when you give us feedback on Treasure and Nadia in the Symphony of Serpent feedback form, and I read that and I go, the game's done like 6 years ago, but I appreciate it.
I mean, I'll beat this drum for a while, but if you go and you load Treasure of Nadia and you watch a scene you will see how robotic the motions of the characters moving together feel, right? Very, very stiff. The fluidity in this game, I think, is definitely more improved. The characters are built into the environments, they're not layered on top of them. There's more voice acting, there's so much more to the world. And I think in general, as a casual comment to wrap up the casual catch up, things have improved. It's just a matter of continuing to do so within the limits of what can be done. So with that being said, Davey, we want to, I think, wrap at this point. I don't know what we're going to do for the next episode, but we look forward to hearing thoughts, feedbacks, and any ideas of what we can do next. One of the things I want to do is ask folks for their hot takes. So then Davey and I can either agree, disagree, butcher them apart. I think that would be kind of fun to kind of be very controversial towards things. So maybe we'll get that in the works in the future. We'll try and bring back maybe Sumatra to talk about environments and all that kind of stuff.
And his games.
Yeah. Any other suggestions are more than welcome. Please let us know. Davey, anything else to add to the casual catch up and kind of as we wrap up here on episode 12 of the Love Potion podcast?
Nothing to add to the casual catch up. I just want to say, if you are a game developer and you've listened to this episode, first, thank you for listening all the way through. And then if you want to hit us up on X or Discord or wherever you find us and you want to come on as an interviewee, we are more than welcome to have you. That'd be great to have. Big Bang Studio, thanks again to them. It was a great time. They've been wonderful as well. They've been DMing with us afterwards as well, which has been wonderful. Learning loads very, very quickly and enjoying that. All right, thank you all for listening, and we'll catch you in the next one. Hit like, hit subscribe, and peace out.